are here for you on radio, television and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
"100 days for Rishi Sunak in office, 100 days defined by scandals and strikes, and interest rates hitting a 15-year high."
Good morning. It is 6 o'clock. It's bright and early. It's Thursday, the 2nd of February. Welcome aboard. Lovely to have your company. Yeah. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Do you think people are bright and early today?
Yeah.
When I come into work, here we're on to Rishi, wait a minute, I'm talking
He's
about.
bright and early. I guarantee he's up at this time of day.
Yeah, so it's 100 days for him today with his premiership plagued by strike action and ministerial scandals. Polling puts the Prime Minister 21 points behind Keir Starmer. Yeah, with 56% of people saying he is doing a bad job.
Interest rates are predicted to rise to 4% today, their highest level since the 2008 financial crash. The move would be the Bank of England's 10th consecutive rate increase.
The family of the missing Lancashire mother, Nicola Bulley, say they fear that somebody has got her. Her father says the area next to the River Wye, where she disappeared, is isolated and there is no sign of a slip or fall.
And after an essay that was written by artificial intelligence was awarded an A-star grade, we'll be asking if AI could spell the end of schoolwork.
The only person I have met that says homework was a good thing, or that they actually looked forward to homework. That's actually a quote. I used to love homework. I used to love looking forward to it. Is you.
Stop, I just radiate joy when you say that. I feel genuine pride. Do you know why?
Why?
Because
you're not
I was learning for learning's sake. I wasn't just doing it because I had homework. I was interested in what I was doing.
See, I always saw it as a punishment.
No, but I think maybe that was in the house that you were raised in. It wasn't sort of... your family didn't make you feel like it was a good thing to do. It was made to be a punishment. Whereas I was made to feel like, oh, how interesting, how exciting.
We'd go, what? 2 blooming homeworks from that tonight, or...
I also just wanted to see what I could come up with. I was just a loser.
No, what I wanted to come up with was Charlie's Angels, or The Sweeney, or Star Trek, or whatever was on TV that night. No,
don't get me wrong, I used to love Soldier Soldier and all the TV that was on in my day, but... We just had it all in time slots. I have very fond memories of school.
Hurrah, AI may put an end to
No, it's awful.
What's going to put an end to Rishi Sunak? 100 days in office. Is he going strong or not? Well, so far his premiership has been defined by scandals, ministerial scandals and strike action.
Well, here we are, the day on from the strikes by teachers and, of course, rail workers. Mr Sunak is now facing another crisis with his Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, facing more calls to resign over mounting bullying allegations.
Well, new data from YouGov, the polling organisation, suggests that 56% of you think that Rishi Sunak is doing a bad job as he trails 21 points behind Labour.
Yes, and our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, has been taking a look at Sunak's time as Prime Minister so far and what the next 100 days could hold. A warning, his report contains some flash photography.
It was the job he fought for, then assumed he would never get. But on October 25th last year, Rishi Sunak walked into Downing Street as our new Prime Minister.
I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government in his name.
His first 100 days have been marked by the 3 S's: strikes, sleaze and stability. The Prime Minister's undoubted first success had been to stabilise the panicky financial markets after the calamitous tenure of Liz Truss. Confidence has been restored, but the economy remains bruised. Inflation continues to punch into double digits. Interest rates are still rising, and Britain is faced with a recession this year, unlike any other G7 economy. Real-term wage cuts are also provoking mass industrial action, not seen for decades. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, railway workers, bus drivers, frankly the list goes on and on, have joined picket lines with no end in sight. Rishi Sunak has also failed to get away from the mire of Tory sleaze, losing 2 cabinet ministers so far. Gavin Williamson resigned within weeks amid bullying claims, and Nadeem Zahawi was sacked over his tax affairs. But the Home Secretary, who was found to have broken the ministerial code, remains in place, as does Dominic Raab, who's facing his own claims of workplace bullying. So maybe it's not a surprise the opinion polls are looking grim for the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party. Some are now predicting a 1997 wipeout. The government insists, however, there is a narrow path to victory at the next election. And with a spring budget and local election campaign ahead, it is the next 100 days that will determine just how narrow that path is. Darren McCaffrey, GB News.
Well, joining us for more on this is the former aide to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Leon Emerali. Very good morning to you. Always good to get your thoughts. What do you think, then? Has Rishi Sunak steadied the ship, or perhaps, as the IMF seemed to conclude, has he overcorrected? I mean, what's your assessment of those first 100 days?
Well, he's had an interesting first 100 days. In one respect, he's done what he said he was going to do, which is essentially stabilise the ship, get the economy back on track after the short-term shock of Liz Truss's mini-budget. And we've seen that, albeit the long-term prospects of the UK don't look quite as promising. But then on the other hand, he has failed, because he said on the steps of Downing Street he would bring back professionalism, integrity, accountability. Well, we've seen sort of scandal after scandal over these 100 days, whether it's from not wearing a seatbelt to cabinet ministers.
That he said he was going to do that, and as he's in the job, he's finding out all of this is happening, and he is doing something about it.
Well, that's certainly a way of looking at it, Eamonn, and I think that he's an experienced politician. Let's not forget he was Chancellor for, one of the most unprecedented times in the country during the pandemic, so he knows this stuff, and it does seem that there are still elementary mistakes being made with his leadership, whether it's not looking decisive enough, not taking action quickly enough, and I think that's one of his big problems, the weakness optics that are surround him.
Well, let's not forget he's also got not 1, not 2, but 3 former Prime Ministers on the back benches, 2 of whom seem to be trying to make some sort of comeback. Liz Truss on the front of the papers this morning, unbelievably, 100 days after stepping down, seems to think she's in with another chance.
It's not helpful to have, your former Prime Ministers making noise, and I don't think Liz Truss or Boris Johnson are going to go away quietly, and
Liz
we
Truss
can see
really
that.
Go under a rock somewhere and hide. Shouldn't she, if she had any pride at all?
I find it strange that there's anyone who wants to see a Liz Truss comeback other than Liz Truss, because, I'm not sure where that clamour is coming from, but clearly she still thinks she has a role to play in public life and wants to make some noise about this growth coalition we heard about when she was Prime Minister.
What about the Raab problem? 24 allegations, many serious. Talk of one of them being suicidal, another person saying that they're incredibly sick from the stress that was caused by it. And as Sir Keir Starmer said at PMQs yesterday, everybody knew about these allegations. They'd been swell. Everyone here knew about these rumours about his conduct. And I have to say, interviews that I've done with him sometimes have been among the rudest I've ever had with a cabinet minister.
Well, look, we've been talking about Dominic Raab's bullying allegations, Isabel, for months now, and I think that there is a growing sense that we are going to find a conclusion to it one way or another fairly soon. And look, there are understandings in Westminster, in Whitehall, that Dominic Raab is a tough boss. But bullying is very hard to prove, and I think that's why this is such a messy sort of case, because we can't categorically prove what is a bully and what isn't a bully. But I think that there is an understanding that eventually we're going to find a conclusion to that.
OK. Well, that's the 100 Days assessment. Stay with us, Leon, because we'll get your thoughts on this next story as well.
It was very nice to that policeman. He passed there, he nodded and he said hello.
Well, yeah.
It is strange, though, as you say, what is expected and what you could prove as being a bully. I know football managers who would say to me that they couldn't manage today, ex-football managers, because any sort of aggression or shouting or whatever is deemed as bullying. So, and their jobs stood by that.
Yeah, it's stressful. It's stressful being a football manager. It's stressful being a politician, and I think that sometimes shows, doesn't it, during the pressure.
OK, thanks very much, Leon. Midday today, Bank of England is predicted to deliver its 10th interest rate rise in a row. We think bringing it to 4%. Now, that move will be a continuation of the quickest series of hikes for more than 30 years. To break it all down for us, our economics guru, and as I christened him yesterday.
We've renamed you now.
We just think, we think we should call you guru.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, or a Jedi master.
I can live with that.
Of economics, you know. So, we think 4% today.
Yeah, so this time last year, interest rates were well below 1%. They were at emergency levels during the COVID lockdown. They'd been below 1%, actually, for quite a few years. Never really fully recovered after the global financial crisis of 2008. And now we're expecting the 10th interest rate rise in a row. Why are they going up? Because the Bank of England, having been late to the party, being late to cotton on that inflation was really coming to the fore, is now bearing down on inflation. And inflation's come down from over 11 now to just over 10%. I think most people would suggest that inflation has peaked. That means that interest rates could peak quite soon. I've been predicting for some months a peak of 4.25%. So that would mean one more rise after today. And we talk about Rishi Sunak. It could be that towards the end of the year, inflation's well down and interest rates are coming down too. And in the end, your political future depends, as a US election advisor once said, on the economy, stupid. And if the economy turns round, it strikes me that a lot of these sleaze allegations and the domination of politics by these kind of headlines will melt away. Elections are won in purses and pocketbooks.
Yeah, and so what will people's purses and pockets look like with 4% interest rates?
Well, if you're a saver, that's good news. Savings rate that you get from a bank will still be below the rate of inflation, so you'll still actually lose money in real terms on your savings, but not as much. And, of course, you'll pay more if you've got a variable rate mortgage. What I would say is if you are coming off a variable rate and looking to fix your mortgage, I'd wait a few months, because as rates peak, once they start coming down again, that's the time to fix your mortgage, not when we think that there may be a few more interest rate rises in the can, if you like. I mean, on Rishi Sunak, I'd say the guy's only been an MP since 2015. He is experienced, I agree, accelerated very fast up the greasy pole, if you like. But on the other hand, he hasn't been around all that long. And I talk to a lot of Conservative backbenchers. It's not so much Liz Truss herself that they want back, but they want some of the policies that she represents back. The Prime Minister, the Chancellor, they're coming under huge pressure to not raise taxes anymore and even quite soon cut taxes from their current 70-year high. So it strikes me that we're now in the run-up to this spring budget in March, March the 15th, just before Paddy's Day, Eamonn. Yeah. And I think in the run-up to that, there's going to be a huge amount of rows about tax policy.
Is that what you're hearing, Leon? Do you think there is tension perhaps within even the cabinet on what the budget should contain, not least in light of the IMF report this week, but also, you know, how we're doing with inflation, which of course is their big target to halve it by the end of the year?
Of course it is, and you can't go into an election with an economy looking with all the sort of headlights flashing in front of you. We need to have some shoots of growth coming through. We need to see a long-term vision, really, as to what Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives under his leadership plan for how this country looks, and then what that means for, yes, our pockets, but also for public services and all the things that we rely on that are currently being underinvested because of the state of national finances.
And he tried to do that, didn't he, in his speech at the beginning of the year, and that was widely seen as a bit of a flop, because the main headline was extending maths into A-levels. And, you know, what does he stand for? What will his legacy be? Will his legacy just be sort of managed decline?
Well, he's a firefighter at the moment. He just seems to be managing crisis after crisis. And, you know, he is a Conservative who believes in a small state and low taxes, but he's not being given the economic headroom to actually deliver on that. And we saw when Liz Truss tried to, how the markets reacted. But as time goes on, there is going to be a clamour both from right-wing MPs who want to see lower taxes, who want to see that going for growth, as well as from the public who want to see the economy improve.
But in the short term, and when that announcement comes at noon today, for people who are feeling the cost of living crisis, for people who are striking and saying they just haven't got enough in their pay packet, it's going to get worse.
I think interest rates will go up again after today, that's right. One thing I'd say on those green shoots, you know, that IMF report that Isabel mentioned, that was extremely gloomy. I'd say that was actually behind the curve. It very much took its cue from a bunch of Bank of England forecasts a few weeks ago that were very, very gloomy. I think the Bank of England today is going to have to change its tune on growth.
What about change its governor?
Well, we've talked a lot about Andrew Bailey. I do think he's been way behind the curve on inflation, and I do think the latest set of Bank of England forecasts were too gloomy. When the interest rate decision is made today, there will be a new set of forecasts, and I suspect they won't be nearly as downbeat as the IMF was. But, you know, we live in hope.
Yeah, forecasts are just that, aren't they? At the end
they're not
of the
destiny.
Day. Exactly. All right, thank you so much,
see you later.
Liam,
Thank
and
you
thank
very
you to
much,
Leon Emirali.
Coming up to 6:15.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of our top stories this hour. And a petition calling for fair pay for nursing staff has now reached 100,000 signatures. It'll be delivered to 10 Downing Street later today, with the Royal College of Nursing saying the Prime Minister is yet to solve the NHS crisis.
Centrica, who own British Gas, say they have stopped applying for court warrants to force-fit prepayment meters on people who haven't paid bills. The decision comes after a Times sting in which an undercover journalist accompanied debt collectors who entered the homes of people with extreme vulnerabilities.
The Health Secretary says England is set to be one of the first countries in the world to wipe out hepatitis B. It comes as the World Health Organization said its transmission from mothers to their babies has effectively been eliminated in England.
Take a break there. Coming up after that, the latest on the missing Lancashire woman Nicola Bulley. After the weather.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A lot of cloud across the UK today with rain in places, but it's also going to be mild. Our weather at the moment coming from the west to southwest. That's always a mild direction at this time of year. And with high pressure close to the south, things are staying largely dry, but weather fronts will topple northern parts of the UK. So Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England seeing the thickest cloud and some outbreaks of rain, but the rain primarily focused across northwest Scotland, where it's going to be heavy and persistent through much of the day. Light outbreaks of rain for the Northern Isles and some dribbles across western hills and coasts of England and Wales. Even across southwest England, there'll be some spots of rain. But a lot of cloud as well. The best of any brighter spells will be in the southeast. Widely, however, across the UK, it's 10 to 13 Celsius, with the exception of Shetland, where it stays a bit colder. So a very mild day to come for the vast majority, and a mild night to come on Thursday night. We keep a lot of the cloud, we keep the spells of rain going across northern Scotland. The rain turns more showery for a time on Thursday night in the north. It eases off across northern Scotland. Some light outbreaks of rain push into southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, parts of Wales. But for many, by the start of Friday, it's generally cloudy, it's mild, but it's also fairly dry. The best of any brightness will be across northern Scotland on Friday morning. But again, a lot of cloud cover across the UK on Friday. Grey skies, especially in western areas, and once more there'll be some spots of rain over Dartmoor, Exmoor, Brecon Beacon, Snowdonia and so on. But the more persistent rain really crossing northern Scotland through the day on Friday, and it's going to be mild once again across the board. 10 to 13 Celsius, just once more a bit chillier across Shetland. Some changes take place on Saturday. Saturday starts off very mild, frost-free, a lot of cloud and some outbreaks of rain. Then a switch to colder but also brighter weather on Sunday, an early frost but a sunny afternoon.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television and online, across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
At 6:20, very nice to have you on board, Eamonn and Isabel, with breakfast on GB News.
Lots more still to come during the programme. At 6:45, we'll be asking, could artificial intelligence be the death of homework? Eamonn starts to cheer. At 6:45, we'll get the views of an AI expert and from the country's strictest head teacher, Catherine Burblesing. Make sure you pay attention.
7:15, we'll take a look at how the impending interest rate decision due at noon from the Bank of England will affect small businesses.
And as usual, we want your views throughout the programme. All views welcome.
We want to return to this story about the missing Lancashire mother, Nicola Bulley, and her parents say they fear that somebody has taken their daughter. Her father says the area next to the River Wire, where she disappeared, shows no sign of any slips or falls.
Well, Nicola Bulley was last seen walking her spaniel along the river on Friday morning. Soon after, the mum of two's dog was found off its lead, along with Nicola's phone, which was still connected to a work call. In fact, I was reading yesterday, the person who found the dog said the dog was in a distressed state, which I think is really interesting.
Search is continuing, and we go to our reporter Will Hollis for more.
Nearly a week on from her disappearance, and there's still no answer as to what happened to Nicola Bulley. Yet her friends are holding on to hope that they can find her.
Knowing that her two little girls are at home missing mummy, and knowing that mummy is missing, is what's driving us forward. We know that knowing Nikki, her family are everything, and we know without a doubt that if she could be at home with them, that's where she'd be. We are just trying to hold on to the hope.
The making sense doesn't make sense if you gather us. Again, Nikki is just a lovely human being inside and out, living a normal life, dropping the children off at school, going on a daily walk. things planned, going out at the weekend, seeing friends and family. Yeah, you just can't make sense that this is actually happening and here we are.
Nicola vanished from St Michael's in Lancashire last Friday. She dropped her kids off at school, then walked her dog Willow, a spaniel, down a familiar route along the River Wyre at around 9:15. It's a popular place and usually busy. That was the last time she was seen. An hour later, her dog was found between the river and a bench. On the seat was her phone, still connected to a conference call. The sudden disappearance remains a mystery. Lancashire Police is keeping an open mind, but says it doesn't think she was attacked and isn't treating the case as criminal. The force and its partners are focusing on the river. The worry is that she's fallen in. Police divers and fire and rescue teams with sniffer dogs search below, while helicopters scan from the sky. Meanwhile, a man described as a key witness is speaking with officers.
People living here in St Michael's are trying to make sense of what's happened to Nicola, but that's not all they're doing. They're also trying to help, and the local tennis club is being used as a base so that people can come down and offer their support. They've got maps of different walks along the River Wyre, and every day groups of people are walking those routes trying to find Nicola.
Even with the community treading every inch of the river's edge, the puzzle is yet to be solved. At home, Nicola's partner and family are stuck wondering. Her 2 young girls just want their mummy back. Will Hollis for GB News.
Right, with that, we will take a break and then come the papers this morning with...
We've got Freddie Gray and Claire Muldoon. Stay with us.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous. Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back at 6:26. Let's bring you up to date with today's front pages of the newspapers.
Daily Mail, first of all, focusing on a new law to stop schools from striking after yesterday's walkouts.
Here's the Telegraph. It says that the RAF is facing a crisis over their push to recruit more women and ethnic minorities. Really interesting comments from Tobias Elwood on that.
Here's the Times. British Gas breaking into homes of the vulnerable. That guy is one of the collectors who's trying to enforce these meters inside.
I feel bad for him, actually. It's not his fault. I mean, he's employed by British Gas. British Gas clearly doing questionable practices, but to single out...
Yes, but he says If they're just saying, oh, I'm a single mum and I've got 3 kids and blah, 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 that's not a vulnerability. I'm a bit old school and a bit hard-nosed.
Oh, OK.
Right. So,
all right, stick him on the front of the Times then.
Right, okay.
Here's The Guardian. It's questioning whether the taxpayer should foot the bill for Boris Johnson's Partygate legal advice, and it was one heck of a bill, £220,000.
And finally, The Mirror. When will someone care? Following the death of the little girl who was mauled by her pet dog.
Do you know, I looked into that yesterday because we were talking about it on the programme, the number of dog deaths and how it's increasing. And I think around 3 years ago, the average, still shocking, but was around 3 deaths a year. Well, in 2021, that rose to 10 deaths a year, and it seems to be on the increase. And if this year's anything to go by, that will continue to grow. Lots of questions, I think, exactly as the paper says there, about what is going on with our dogs at the moment and what's going wrong, because you can't have children being mauled at home.
Yeah, the way these dogs are bred and the type of dogs that they are as well, which, honestly, there are enough dogs out there to adopt. So don't be going to breeders.
Well, no, the dog, at this case, had been adopted. It was from a rescue centre. But I was always told if you have children under the age of 7, you're not allowed to. But of course, she was 4 years old. But we need better education, don't we, about whether or not it's safe to rescue dogs. You don't know what their past is, what their background is. Anyway,
well, we know what
digress.
past of Claire Muldoon is. That's why she's back here doing the papers.
Not sure about Freddie's.
Well, he's not very good, but cheap. He's OK. He's in there. Deputy editor of The Spectator. Freddie, lovely to see you.
Good morning. Lovely to see you, Eamonn.
Right, Claire, we're going to start Rishi Sunak 100 days into the job. And what's the Mail saying about him?
So, 100 days into the job, and I think it's a bit mediocre, kind of... he's not really been leading anything, in my view. So, what he's now...
He's firefighting,
He's firefighting. I would say it's 100 days of strikes, mostly, than 100 days of power or leadership. But I don't think we've witnessed any. So, a new law to stop school strike mayhem. What the Mail is basically saying is, previously, the teachers wanted to strike. They didn't have to inform their head teachers that they were going to strike. Therefore, it was a management issue. The head teachers could not, therefore, manage numbers of pupils in classes, number of pupils in the school, so they couldn't organise it.
I'd love to reach across and touch your mic, but I think I'd be arrested. It's rubbing. It's told your mic is rubbing.
Your hair's rubbing. There you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As you were.
Yeah.
Right, so... what he is now trying to do is stop...
No, apparently where your mic is so bad. You can just take it off. Take it off.
I'll turn to Freddie whilst we sort that out.
I can talk about
just find
strikes.
Yes, let's talk about strikes, because the focus is very much on head teachers not being informed. Well, it has impact on families as well. Parents didn't know whether or not their children's classes were going to be closed.
I think, I mean, of all the ways in which the public have been affected by the strikes, I think the schools one is the worst. And it has the potential to be the most damaging for the government, because it clearly was, the level of it was unexpected. And Rishi Sunak keeps using this line on strikes to Keir Starmer. You know, you're in the pay of your union masters. You don't dare stand up on strikes. That doesn't seem to be working with the public. The public don't care. The public just want these things to get sorted. And there is this other lingering issue of, you know, if a strike happens in a dysfunctional society, does anyone hear it? It's like a tree falling in a forest. I don't think that the public are kind of necessarily blaming the government. They're not necessarily blaming the unions. There's just a sort of general gloom and despair. And that's hung over Rishi Sunak's 100 days more than anything else.
On the teachers' strike, I mean, obviously it was being widely reported yesterday, and I heard lots of facts and figures which really, you know, made me pause to think. Because I do think as a society we have to ask whether or not we value our teachers enough, and I would argue that certainly at my school, the teachers are absolutely incredible. I have an undying respect for them since having children. And yet I heard that teachers in England and Wales are paid more and work fewer days than those across Europe. So do they have a legitimate cause to go out on strike?
Well, they're worried about inflation, like everybody is, and they want their pay to go up with inflation. And the government is very, very keen and adamant that if we want to bring inflation down, we need to keep public sector, below the level of inflation. Otherwise, we'll have an inflationary spiral. So, of course, they're understandably worried about the cost of living. Everybody is. Nobody wants to blame teachers. Nobody wants to blame nurses. But at the same time, somehow this has got to get resolved. Somebody's going to have to give somewhere.
Well, let's go back to Claire. We've had her microphone sorted out, hopefully. Do you want to blame... Who do you want to blame? Do you want to blame Rishi Sunak?
Well, no, I don't want to blame anyone, but I just don't think that now is the time for more strikes. I think the teachers' unions should actually sit down and say and explain to them that they've got incredibly good pension schemes, they've got incredibly good holidays, they've got incredibly good working normally conditions. So if we want to address issues of inflation or inflation spiral in terms of giving them more money, then we need to sit down and be grown up about it. Striking is not the answer. They are there to educate the children, and they are there primarily to do a job.
Earn a wage. You see, I don't agree with all of this at all. I think all the things that you quoted, their pension and they've good pensions, whatever, they obviously don't think so, and they wouldn't be doing it. Now, you're pointing that out maybe compared to other people that is the case, but it's not the way they see it.
It's not, unfortunately, but sometimes things have to be pointed out to people. Some people, I don't like a lot of things that are going on in my life at the moment, but you just need to put up.
Do you think teachers are going to go away and say, oh, yeah, you're right, Claire, you're right, you're part of the negotiating team, you're right, we're not going to accept anything, we'll just go back into
No, but what they need to do is actually look... When we were at school, we didn't have teaching assistants. We didn't have... I mean, I'm not saying that teachers have got any easier, but I left primary school back in the 70s, 80s. I can still read and write. I had music,
but how many
I had
children
sewing...
with different languages were in your class? I mean, I think...
None.
Well, exactly, so you need those teaching assistants to manage that.
No, Isabel, this is across the country. This isn't just one pocket in a small hamlet outside Glasgow. This is nationwide. And my sister's a teacher, and there's so many forms to fill out. There's so much...
Would your sister agree that she's paid well and has got a good pension and good...
She would, actually. She would.
And feel blessed she's got the job.
She would. She does. But she wants to retire as soon as she can, because it's become such a job, because they are social workers, they are nurses, they are doctors.
So what do we do about that?
They need to get people sitting around the table and explain to them that life isn't always a bed of roses, and sometimes we've just got to own it. But moreover, the children that they are there to support, nurture, care for and educate deserve an education, especially after the COVID pandemic and been under the cosh for 2 years.
I don't know about you, I did see a lot of kids in hoodies hanging around yesterday with not a lot to do. And, you know, what message does that say to children? We saw a lot of kids, didn't we, after the pandemic, not returning to the classroom. Here they are again, out fending for themselves. I do wonder, do you think the pension thing is actually somewhere where there could be some sort of wiggle room from the government? Perhaps I heard that the value of the state pension for teachers, which is often described as gold-plated, could equate to £10,000 a year for teachers. Why not readjust the pension scheme so that they get a higher annual wage whilst they're going through this high inflationary period? Or would that be deemed to be inflationary in itself?
Well, I think with the teachers, we're still in the kind of brinkmanship stage where the government shows no budging, the union shows no budging. Eventually there will be some wiggle room, probably on pensions. But, yeah, for now, I mean, you say that, but my daughter thought it was a fun day off.
Exactly. Any normal child would think that.
She thought it was a fun day
couldn't
off.
imagine.
But that's not the point. It's not the point.
I do have all this concern. I mean,
You don't
it's a
think
day
kids
off.
would have been up to no good yesterday, drinking?
Probably.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
That's called fun.
All right.
Oh, Eamonn.
Anyway,
Eamonn.
right, OK.
Yeah.
Now, listen, let's talk about Liz Truss, guys, OK? So are we actually seriously considering, is she actually letting it be known that she wants to come back into politics, Claire?
She does, because she's
on the front line.
She's one of the backbenchers with Theresa May, Boris Johnson, and she's a big supporter of Boris, regardless of what happened, his end of term of leadership. Nadine Dorris, as we know, has got a new Talk TV show, and Liz Truss is going to be on it as well, it's rumoured. And, you know, these people, they seem to have they're shameless, absolutely shameless. And this isn't an anti-conservative thing, this isn't an anti-government thing, this is an anti-political process that we're going through in the UK at the moment. It's embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing, from Scotland to Wales to England. The political state of this country is an absolute aberration, and it has to stop.
I mean, you ask a lot of people in the country about Liz Truss, and you might think that she would have wanted to go into a witness protection scheme after what happened. And yet, you know, people are talking about Rishi Sunak's 100 days. Is he an electoral asset or not? Having Liz Truss make a comeback has got to spell disaster at the ballot box, hasn't it, for the Tories?
I think so, but I do think there are quite a lot of the public that feels she got a pretty raw deal, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So we're, what, 35 billion in debt or something? And
well, it's not all down to her, and I think, you know, she identified...
Kwasi as well.
Kwasi was to blame too. Obviously, it was a disastrous premiership, but she quit. Her career is indelibly scarred as a result. She is trying to make a comeback, and she is out for revenge. I mean, there's no doubt that the people around Liz despise the people around Rishi, and they want to knife them.
Who are the people that are around her?
Because Rishi knifed them.
Yeah.
Who are the people around her? Well, there's Ruth Porter is one of them, who may or may not get an honour.
Boris Johnson, or is she around Boris Johnson? Is he around her, or is she around him?
That's an odd one.
They are, though, aren't
they're
they?
both going to become the rebels. You know, they're kind of the people outside of government but still causing as much trouble, outside the tent, doing something in. Then they could end up competing with each other as to sort of who's the bigger rebel.
Yeah, they're a dream for Sir Keir Starmer. Either way, you can just sit back and watch Boris and Liz.
The Tories are ungovernable.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
Well, since we're talking about Boris, should we talk about the front of The Guardian, which is outraged at the taxpayer picking up the bill for Boris Johnson, who sought legal advice over Partygate.
Yes.
I mean, surely that's fair enough. You seek legal advice if you're in trouble with the law when you're an elected politician. But it's just...
I'm slightly torn on this. I think it's probably the right thing that if you're in a job and you get into legal trouble as a result of your job, your employer pays for the cost. That's happening here. It is, of course, an enormous cost. I like The Guardian complaining about it. I mean, if it wasn't for The Guardian, Partygate costs wouldn't be quite so much. But also, the reason I'm torn about it is that £220,000, as Liam Halligan said to me, that's the night's work for Boris Johnson. So maybe he could just do a speech to an arms manufacturer.
It's a quarter of a night's work.
He could magnanimously offer to pay it off. But
yes, he could.
He hasn't been very magnanimous so far with his money.
There we go.
So let's get on and talk about the dog situation, Claire, about this front page of the Mirror. They're leading the charge on this.
Alice's mum is absolutely heartbroken. Well, I would be too. Little girl 4, killed at home by family dog. Now, we were talking at the top of the show when you were going through the newspaper headlines, you know, how difficult it is to, you know, train dogs, home dogs, and the issues with breeding dogs in this country. And yet this dog is reported to have been a rescue dog. But the statistics, I mean, I don't know if this is a pandemic thing where everyone was taking dogs in and because we couldn't go out, they couldn't be trained properly, they weren't adjusted. But to have a dog that was so... what kind of dog was it that mauled her to death?
A husky bulldog cross.
I mean...
From a rescue centre.
Quite a cross. Quite a cross mix there, you know? And it's just atrocious. And then we had the incident with the dog walker not that long ago that was mauled by 8 dogs. And she was killed by the punctures in her neck. I mean, what can we do? I don't know what we can do. I think steps have to be taken to protect, obviously, vulnerable children in the homes of these dogs. But I think, moreover, it's down to the owners themselves. Why put your children or yourself in a position with getting a dog that you don't know this into your home?
I would love to hear from an animal psychologist on this as to... I mean, it's not the first to have that woman who was dog walking in the Surrey Hills and the dogs turned on her. Why? What is it? We just need to know. We just can't say, oh, it was a badly bred dog or whatever it is. What threatened
was the trigger?
Dog? Yeah, what was the trigger? Why did that dog see a 4-year-old as a threat?
It's really interesting if you look at the statistics on where the majority of these attacks are happening. Disproportionately in the northwest of the country. You're most likely to be attacked by a dog in Liverpool, and you're also most likely to be attacked by a dog in your own home. And I read yesterday that some of it's being attributed to the advice that's been given to dog owners on things like TikTok, which is actually really bad advice to dog owners. A lot of people taking on dogs during lockdown then had behavioural problems when they went back to work. There's obviously a bit of a crisis, and I do think the headline's completely right. When is anyone going to take this seriously?
But there was also the case of the child being taken from the Moses basket and absolutely mauled, and no one could hear anything other than the screams from the mother. And
on the same page you've got there, Claire, there's a lady in the top left-hand corner in her 90s.
She's a gran.
Took a long time to die from her injuries, but they were caused initially by...
An infected scalp wound 17 days after being mauled in December by an extra-large bully cane corso. I mean, that must have been huge.
Yeah, it's frightening.
You know, sometimes it's just...
I am. I saw the Mirror campaigning for the Dangerous Dogs Act change said that there'd be checks on... We have a staffy. I think staffies are considered dangerous, aren't they? So we would probably have to be checked. Our staffy wouldn't hurt anyone, I should add.
Well, presumably most people think their dog wouldn't hurt anyone.
I know, that's true. But I would have thought with this one, if it came if it was a rescue dog, you'd imagine, you can't always tell, you'd imagine that the rescue centre they should have known that there might be a behavioural issue.
Yeah.
There should have been checks.
I just think if you've got young children, the advice is don't adopt a dog just yet. Wait till the kids are a bit older. That's just what I've always been told.
I think you can sense whether a dog is good or bad, or, you know, a lot of these dogs are bred to be vicious, and they're bred by stupid men, basically, who want to sell them to other stupid men to be very macho about it. But sometimes I just think you can sense a kindness or a softness from an animal, and, you know, trust your own instinct on it. But
it's very difficult to adopt a cat or a dog from Battersea.
Yes,
it's very difficult. The checks that they put in place.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's more difficult to adopt a pet than it is a child.
Yeah, but the checks are on the family rather than on the dog. And presumably in this case, the family passed the criteria, but who knows what the dog was capable of? Well, we now know, don't we? Awful. Can we talk about these prepayment meters, Freddie? Huge story, front of the number of the papers, and as Eamonn was talking about, perhaps this chap needs
this guy is being caught out. Yeah, he did say some unfortunate things. Of course, it's a brilliant sting by the Times. They put a man undercover with a debt collection agency. I do find it odd that the government are now reacting to this story because the Times has done it, because the Eye actually has been campaigning on this.
Yeah,
so is the Daily, so is the Express.
So is the Express. But suddenly, I mean, I think the brilliance of the sting operation, it's a very good report. I recommend everyone read it. The kind of description of going to this house, sort of, you know, playing with the toys, sitting there while the guy fixes up the meter and then they leave. I think the public do find this outrageous, and rightly so. We shouldn't be breaking into people's homes, particularly the homes of vulnerable people, because they can't afford to pay their energy costs. What the government should be focusing on is trying to bring down the cost of energy, which it has tried to do unsuccessfully to a lot.
Do you know, it costs the energy company £22 just to take this to court, and it's someone sitting, stamping things automatically without looking at the causes nor the effect of what this will happen and the damage it causes, not only to people's mental health, but their physical health and their lack of security in their own home, which, don't forget, is a basic fundamental right to life, is shelter.
Yeah, and of course, at the end of the day, with these prepayment meters, they're paying
more anyway.
Tariffs. And we'd love to speak to British Gas. If you feel like coming on and talking to us and defending yourselves, you would be most welcome. Very intrigued to hear how you would defend that.
Very shortly, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence in schools. And, I mean, goodness me, artificial intelligence will be the saving of us all in the short term.
No, it won't be.
And the end of us all in the long term. I'm watching so many documentaries about what robots will end up being so superior, they'll just get rid of us.
Robot teachers don't go on strike.
Yeah.
Freddie.
What do you think about this? The idea, Freddie, that you could, you know, do your coursework, your homework. I mean, how the heck do teachers prevent this artificial intelligence, these algorithms being used?
I'm not sure there is a way.
Yeah.
You just have to rely on the honesty of students. And as we know, I certainly wasn't.
Did you hate homework?
Yeah, absolutely.
Homework should be abolished.
Oh, gosh, somebody join me on this campaign.
Homework should be abolished.
Bad news for you. I don't think anybody will join you on that.
Somebody will somewhere, even if it's just my mum.
I'll tell you what, this whole thing about artificial intelligence in schools and universities, it absolutely, no word of a lie, will kill academic thought. It will kill
debate,
original thought, and it will absolutely stifle debate.
The only example that I can kind of put on it is when I think of sat-navs and how I've lost the ability to get from A to B without looking at my sat-nav, even if I do the same journey over and over.
Did you watch The Apprentice? They were all sitting there going, oh, I can't read a map. I don't know how a map works.
I can read a map.
So can I.
We did ordnance survey and things.
But once you stop using that part of your brain, then when it's taken away, you can't actually do it. So I think it'd be terribly sad.
It will be.
And then, you know, anyway.
Well, let's get into this and talk to two people involved in this. Catherine Birbal-Singh is a head teacher, and you'll know her from many different programmes. And also we've got Toby Walsh. Toby is a professor of AI and the author of Machines Behaving Badly. So a professor, Tony, of AI, Toby, yeah. So have we to fear AI or not?
Well, like many technologies, there are positive uses and there are negative uses. So whilst this might result in a lot of cheating and in people's homework. Equally, it's a fantastic tool for teachers. It can be used to offer criticism of their essays they hand in, or it can even be used to mark them if you trust it. And also it can be used by pupils. It makes an excellent personal tutor. You can ask it questions. It's infinitely patient. Doesn't matter how stupid the questions are. It's not going to shame you in any way at all. So there are many positive uses, but equally we should also be very careful about the negative uses.
But as Isabel was saying there, it is doing things for you, Catherine, or for the pupil that they are supposed to be doing for themselves and training their brain and learning to do all of these things. And as Isabel said, once it's gone, it's gone.
Yes, indeed. So I agree entirely with what Tony's saying. Of course, in fact, I've done some work on ChatGPT with the staff here, and we've looked at ways that we can use it to help mark essays and prepare multiple choice questions and all kinds of things. However, we've also looked at how can we tell if they're handing in a piece of work that has been done with the help of AI. Now, one thing I would suggest to all schools is they can't accept type homework. It always has to be written. So at the very least, if they're cheating, they find it online and then they at least have to write it out. But then there are other tells, American spellings, them not including some of the phrases, for instance, that you might have taught them in class. There are ways in which you can try and see through, but it is very difficult. And it is a real worry, I think. I think that this will exacerbate the divide between the advantaged and the disadvantaged, because if you have a mom at home full-time who's able to really watch you doing your homework and make sure that you're sat at your desk writing away, that's good. If, on the other hand, mom is out working 3 jobs and you're left up to yourself, you will go onto ChatGPT and you will get ChatGPT to do your homework for you.
So how much of a headache is this for you, Catherine, in your daily practice? I've got lots of friends who are teachers. They've all been messaging me going, this is a huge story. It's completely changing the landscape. And indeed, Elaine's, which is one of the top private schools in the country, I think it's top number 25 on one of the rankings, has had to ban essays because they just can't guarantee that they're actually legit.
Yes, well, it does certainly mean the end of coursework when it comes to exams. So the IGCSE, the English IGCSE that is 40% coursework is going to have to change that, because it means that young people who are getting that GCSE, you have no idea, it could just be the AI bot that's getting them the GCSE. So that makes a massive change. It is very difficult, and it's a real worry because children do need to know how to write. And unfortunately, there are some people arguing now, well, look, seeing as the robots can do it, we don't have to do it. But it's the same as when we had calculators. We don't say to ourselves, there's no point in teaching children how to add 2 + 2 just because a calculator can do it.
Okay, Toby, you're listening to all of that. What way can we move forward as pupils, as teachers, as parents on all of this? How do you predict the future being with this AI intelligence being there?
Well, I think the example of calculators is a good historical example, and I think we're probably going to end up with the same sort of trajectory. We will insist that at primary school and when you're learning to write and learning to communicate and construct arguments, that we ensure that you do that without the aid of these tools. And then once you've started to master those elements, then these are fantastic tools that will be out there in the real world. When you leave school, they're going to be in all the software that you use. Microsoft is one of the big backers of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. They're just putting in another $10 billion investment into the company. So you can be sure that it's going to be turning up in all of Microsoft's products. Google is going to respond with their own version. So these are going to be really useful tools.
Yeah, it's interesting. You seem very calm, very level about this. Que sera, sera. And are the rest of us getting our knickers in a twist on Julie about this?
No, I think the discussion you had just now about map reading is a cautionary tale of where we may end up. I'm a lot less lost now because I have all these tools. But equally, I also think I'm the last generation that will know how to read a map. And that is important because we forget about our local communities. We forget about all the knowledge about how the Earth goes around the sun and all that. that maps allow us to access.
One of the things you say, Isabel, you say, about enjoying learning and, coming across things. But AI sounds to me as if it's going to take the enjoyment, the inquisitiveness.
I hate the idea of AI. I hate the idea of kids not being able to do... I love coursework, and so many people are dismissive about its role in assessment because they think it enables kids to cheat and things. There are different types of learning, different types of brain, and I think we focus too much on school for the sake of it rather than education. What I'm trying to say is I think work is just, a job where it should be enjoyable. Back me up, Catherine. Homework, right? You liked it, didn't you?
Yes, well, I mean, I still like it. Every day we said it here.
There we go. Someone else on the planet who liked it. I should have been a head teacher.
That's why you end up a head teacher. I mean, but do you not just think that's
I'd have loved
weird?
To be a head teacher.
No normal child, Catherine, likes homework.
You tell him.
Well, that is the challenge of any good teacher, to get them to be so inspired with their learning that they really enjoy finding out more, exploring it in detail at home, and coming in the next day and impressing their teacher. That is our challenge.
I don't see homework like that. I can understand general education, and I'm a great fan for, as Isabel was saying, just learning and bettering yourself and, gaining knowledge.
There you go. Got it.
No. But homework is like punishment. It's like, I always remember we had 9 periods a day at school. And the only reason we didn't get 9 homeworks was because maybe we had 1 or 2 double periods during that day. So I would come home every blooming night with 7 or 8 homeworks, exhausted. My parents were of no use to me. They weren't educated people. So I just do not see the blooming point. Do it at school. Have a homework club.
Let me tell you the point, because you had homework last night. See all those papers in front of you? You have to know what's going on in there. And in real life, there's homework all the time. And because you had that homework at school, you are now doing the job that you're doing. So, and you're enjoying it. And you don't even think of it as homework. You remember school homework as this terrible thing. But actually, you're doing homework all the time right now, and it's just part of your life. And that is the habit that your great teachers instilled in you so that you could have a successful life.
Love it.
That's not my point. My point is how it breaks up family life, for instance, that there's so much pressure on people now, parents, working parents. Toby's gone there, but he's in Australia. He's gone. He's gone.
I bet he liked homework as well.
But I think, Catherine, when you look at the overall pressures, it's a Victorian sentence, and I mean sentence in the terms of prison, that should be consigned to the history books, really.
Well, I don't think 20, 30 minutes of homework
hours of homework.
And working towards something and having a goal is character building. And like I say, you mustn't underestimate all that you did as a child that has contributed to your success and happiness now. Too often we do that as adults, and we imagine that we would be the same people had we not worked as hard as we did when we were children. That's just not true.
I think the difference is I worked hard, but I was made to work hard. Isabel liked working hard. That's the difference. You volunteered to work hard, whereas I
like working hard for exactly... She just explained it much more eloquently than me, because I wanted to, A, learn, but B, to try and please my teachers. And I guess that was the key. I had good teachers.
Yeah.
I wanted to please them. Anyway, we've got the professor back. Did you like homework?
Yes, I did. I'm afraid I probably not representative self.
This is the best day of my life.
Well, it's not.
3-1.
When the viewers, who will be much more normal than those two, when the viewers get in touch today, they will say.
So glad.
They will say, Isabel, you're on planet Zanussi. It's absolutely no. It's a dated thing.
It does depend on the quality of the homework. I should just stress.
Yeah.
So. The teachers must set good quality homework. And if they don't, that can be very frustrating for the child, and in particular for the parents who end up doing the homework for the child.
Or in the future, Catherine, AI, which will end up doing the homework for everybody. That's the fault. As you were saying, you have to try and check and spot. Guys, brilliant talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. And so impressed, Professor, you coming the whole way from Australia. From where are you, Canberra?
Canberra, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Do you have a pitchfork in the corner of your shot, or am I just imagining it? What's behind you?
No.
It's very.
There's something to your
very
right
strange
hand side.
backdrop.
Hotels, I mean.
Really?
Oh.
Okay. OK.
Very good. Obviously, there's been a bomb and the windows have been blown out.
Get AI to sort
Growing up
out
in
better
Belfast,
rooms.
every hotel looked like that. They had boarded up windows.
Really?
Just, yeah,
look, Professor Walsh, head teacher, Catherine Berbel-Singh, we appreciate your time.
And lovely talking to you, Catherine. I've often wanted to meet you and talk to you.
Back.
And, you know, and if you ever want me to come and lecture at your school and preach the word to the children
I
about
think you might not be invited. I think it might be me that gets the invite.
You can set them some homework.
Bye-bye. See you guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
That's made my day. I can go home now. Job done. See you later.
Rishi Sunak, 100 days in the job. How's he doing? Find out after this.
I bet he did homework.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Rishi Sunak marks 100 days in office defined by scandals and strikes and interest rates hitting a 15-year high.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It is exactly 7 o'clock online, on radio, on TV. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. Thank you for your company.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Prime Minister is reaching 100 days in office today with his premiership plagued by strike action and ministerial scandals. New polling puts Labour 20 points ahead of the Tories, with the majority of people saying the Prime Minister was doing a bad job.
Today at noon, interest rates are predicted to go to 4%, highest level since the 2008 financial crash. The move would be the Bank of England's 10th consecutive rate rise.
Cleaning up the Premier League and giving more power to the fans. Potential club owners are facing stricter finance checks, and we'll be discovering why a new regulator could change the face of football.
And big dreams, tiny home. We're going to meet the man and introduce you to him, living in a very tiny little
eco home.
But it's in the bottom of his friend's garden. I don't know if that's legal.
Sounds a bit weird.
Legal, you know. But is he plumbed in? Does he have sewage issues, or is it all
candlelight?
Okay? Yeah, but he says, look, this saves me 600 quid a month, and he's saying we should all think about downsizing like this.
So here we are, 100 days into Rishi Sunak's premiership, and lots of people making assessments on whether or not he has been able to enforce any sort of legacy, or if he's just been battling scandals and economic disaster.
OK, well, let's have a look at what has been achieved or not within those 100 days from Darren McCaffrey.
It was the job he fought for, then assumed he would never get. But on October 25th last year, Rishi Sunak walked into Downing Street as our new Prime Minister.
I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government in his name.
His first 100 days have been marked by the 3 S's: strikes, sleaze and stability. The Prime Minister's undoubted first success had been to stabilise the panicky financial markets after the calamitous tenure of Liz Truss. Confidence has been restored, but the economy remains bruised. Inflation continues to punch into double digits. Interest rates are still rising, and Britain is faced with a recession this year, unlike any other G7 economy. Real-term wage cuts are also provoking mass industrial action, not seen for decades. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, railway workers, bus drivers, frankly the list goes on and on, have joined picket lines with no end in sight. Rishi Sunak has also failed to get away from the mire of Tory sleaze, losing 2 cabinet ministers so far. Gavin Williamson resigned within weeks amid bullying claims, and Nadeem Zahawi was sacked over his tax affairs. But the Home Secretary, who was found to have broken the ministerial code, remains in place, as does Dominic Raab, who's facing his own claims of workplace bullying. And so maybe it's not a surprise the opinion polls are looking grim for the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party. Some are now predicting a 1997 wipeout. The government insists, however, there is a narrow path to victory at the next election. And with a spring budget and local election campaign ahead, it is the next 100 days that will determine just how narrow that path is. Darren McCaffrey, GB News.
For more on this, the former aide to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, that is Leon Emirali. Leon, well, we're talking about homeworks, we're very into homeworks today. How would you mark Rishi Sunak's homework?
I think he's got a solid C. I don't think he's done anything particularly remarkable. I don't think he's had a catastrophe. He has steadied the ship from that short-term economic shock after Liz Truss's mini-budget, but he hasn't really had a chance to set out his vision for the country, and I think the public are going to demand that sooner rather than later.
Is that understated? You know, the fact that he stabilised the economy? I mean, that could arguably be his biggest achievement of the last 100 days?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that is what he'll point to, is that, you know, we haven't got these sort of sharp shocks in the stock markets that we once had, and yes, OK, interest rates are still rising, but that's potentially because of macroeconomics. So I think he has brought this sense of stability. He's made the UK look like a place to do business again, and that comes down to his appointments of those around the cabinet table as well as him. But we need more than that. We need more than just a sensible and steady politician if he wants to win the next election.
I suppose he's trying to be a Conservative with a small c, in the sense that he's getting his head down, trying to get on with the job, and he's not showboaty. However, the Labour Party very much sense, don't they, a weakness in his leadership, his inability to manage all of these scandals. Is that fair? I think Rishi Sunak, if he was here, would say, hang on a minute, most of these scandals I've inherited, and I'm all about due process and going through things in a legitimate way. But is he weak?
Well, I don't think he is weak. I think he's a very shrewd political operator to get to where he's got to in such a short period of time in his political career. So I don't think he's necessarily weak, but that's the perception that's out there, and that's what Labour are running with. And in politics, once an idea is being seeded, it's very hard to shake that, and that's obviously what Labour are going after. We see it in every single PMQs. It's down to the Prime Minister's weakness, is what they say, and I think that's a problem for him.
But, I mean, we heard in Darren's report there the scandals. We had Gavin Williamson, we had Suella Braverman breaking the ministerial code. We've obviously had Nadeem Zahawi and his tax hoo-ha, and we've currently got this huge investigation, 24 cases being investigated into the Justice Secretary Dominic Raab. All of us had heard the rumours about his reputation long before he became part of Rishi Sunak's cabinet. So he might not be weak, but is his judgment poor?
Potentially. And, you know, the dynamic with Dominic Raab is quite different to, let's say, Nadeem Zahawi. Dominic Raab is a staunch defender, Rishi Sunak. During the first leadership campaign, Dominic Raab was out there batting for Rishi Sunak and actually criticising Liz Truss. So there's a sense of loyalty there, and maybe that's what's making this decision a lot harder for him as opposed to others.
I suppose the process thing helps him get out of that problem.
Yes. OK, talking about decisions, Leon, later today the Bank of England is predicted to make a big one over interest rates, and it's only heading in one direction, Liam Halligan.
Interest rates currently 3.5%, Eamonn, up sharply 9 times in a row over the last year. As inflation's come through, the Bank of England has been trying to push down on inflation. We're expecting a 10th interest rate rise today from 3.5% to about 4%. I think that's not far off the peak. I think they'll peak at about 4.25%, 4.25%. And I think in the summer and into the autumn, we'll be seeing interest rates coming down as inflation comes down. So this is painful if you've got a variable rate mortgage. But if you're a saver, and lots of GB News viewers and listeners will have a few quid stashed away, then you're getting a bit of an extra return.
So economically, that is the plan. Politically, it ties into what both the Chancellor and the Prime Minister want to achieve as well, which is basically to make us all think about, before we spend money, it's going to be more expensive to spend money.
Of course, the cost of living squeeze is real. It's ongoing. Rishi Sunak says he wants to squeeze inflation out of the system. He calls it the most insidious tax. And he's right. We all know that...
No, but he's lying. Death duty. Death duty is the most insidious tax.
a matter of opinion. What I would say, though, is that he's got a real issue on his hands with his own backbenchers. We're now in the run-up to the March 15th spring budget. Yeah. In the run-up to that, a lot of Rishi Sunak's own MPs are pushing him to not raise taxes anymore, maybe start to implement some tax cuts. I would say that the financial markets, they're less concerned now about too much borrowing than they are about the government squeezing the private sector too hard. We're about to put corporation tax up from 19 to 25% into the teeth of a slowdown. No other major economy is doing that. And this isn't just big businesses that pay corporation tax. You know, if you run a plumbing company or a medium-sized shop, you're paying corporation tax. A lot of family businesses, you take 6% out of their margin, Eamonn, after they've been ravaged by lockdown for a couple of years. Those businesses, some of them, unfortunately, will go down. So there's a lot of pressure behind the scenes on Rishi Sunak now from his own MPs. Taxes at a 70-year high to start acting like a Conservative.
Let's get Leon's thoughts on this, because obviously you were in the Treasury advising. And do you accept that? Do you think that there will be perhaps unsustainable pressure? Do you think that the Chancellor may have to change course with the budget on the 15th of March?
Yeah, I think there is a great deal of pressure on him already. And as Liam alludes to, you know, the politics is going to drive the economic policy in that sense. But the UK is an anomaly. We are raising taxes when others aren't necessarily. And we are also, according to the IMF, the only advanced economy that isn't growing. So there is going to be a growing call, whether it's from those who supported Liz Truss or Liz Truss herself or others on the right of the Conservative Party who want to see those tax cuts, who want to see that pro-business environment created. So I do think Jeremy Hunt will be feeling that political pressure.
Don't forget...
It is a political gamble, isn't it, Liam? Because, I mean, they're going to do... Everybody's squeezing, and then the idea is, come the general election, the pressure comes off.
I think it is a gamble, but, you know, to lead is to take risks. I think Leon's absolutely right. People don't just want a managerial sort of politician. The British people like to be led. They like politicians of conviction. And I think a lot of people out there want to see what Rishi Sunak's made of. So, you know, he's presented himself since he became an MP only in 2015 as a kind of small state Conservative. And yet so far he's gone absolutely along with the Treasury orthodoxy, which is more tax and a bigger state. Yeah. You could say he had to do that because the financial markets were very skittish after that Truss Kwasi-Kwarteng budget. On the other hand, in a few months' time, we could see inflation coming down quite sharply, interest rates starting to turn, and the green shoots coming through.
Would the markets want to see Liz Truss reincarnated?
I think the markets aren't nearly as concerned as they were just a few months ago about the policies that Liz Truss embodied. The mini-budget, it was hubristic, it was too much too soon. But in the end, the only way to really deal with our national debt, the only way to raise living standards and get out of this kind of economic funk that we're in is to grow the economy. And it's hard to grow the economy when tax is at a 70-year high.
And before we draw a line under this segment, we haven't mentioned strikes, but that is also not only part of his 100-day legacy, but also part of the problem when we're talking about the economy. One of the reports today saying it's costing the UK £2 billion so far in lost revenue. So will that mark his first 100 days, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, we've had strikes going on since the very start of Rishi Sunak coming in, and the country is essentially being ground to a halt. And again, it feeds into that sense of weakness. Why isn't Rishi Sunak standing up to these union bosses and trying to find a resolution? And I think if we can get strikes under control, if the economy starts moving in the right direction, then maybe, just maybe, they've got a chance of winning in 2024.
Guys, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Businesses, of course, paying close attention to that interest rate decision at midday to see how it will affect their businesses.
Our West Midlands reporter Jack Carson's been speaking to a small business to find out how they've been adapting to higher costs.
In 2018, Peter Johnson was £10,000 in debt. Now, more than 4 years on, him and his business firm Estella boast a worth of more than £1 million. Dealing in sports memorabilia and framing, Peter and the team run everything from the heart of the West Midlands. The journey to growing what he coins his empire has been anything but easy.
Believe it or not, this started when I was 9 years old. I started collecting signatures when I was 9. My first signature was Steve Orr, Australia cricket captain. And then I travelled up and down the UK when I was a teenager. Saw there was a bit of money in it. Then I travelled the world, went to 50 countries. Even last night, I was up till midnight. The motivation is still there. Up at 4, 5 a.m. most mornings. It's got to come down to the vision. First of all, you've got to have a vision. You've got to set out what you want, and then everything falls into place from then.
Research estimates the sports memorabilia market size at more than $26 billion, with the UK leading the way in the European market. Being a global business, though, means firm Estella has to navigate the struggles of inflation both here and abroad. With the cost of living and an eye on today's interest rate decision, like any business, they've had to adapt.
The last 2 weeks of our sales, they've dropped dramatically. But you just have to turn the wheel quickly, right? We've reduced some of our prices. We brought some of our lower-end goods back into stock. And that's a key to success. You have to turn the wheel quickly and effectively. You can't, when things are starting to go down, you've got to quickly change.
Financial markets expect a 0.5 percentage point increase in the Bank of England's base rate to 4%. A decision which will impact everything from loans to supply chains. However, the firm Estella CEO says his next steps are clear.
Really exciting thing for me is what's coming next. And for the company, we're going to be the #1 sports memorabilia company in the world. And for myself, personally, the next target is the billion. And my mission in life is to inspire millions of people all around the world. And I'm going to be doing that through public speaking.
With the eyes of this business firmly planted on growth, today's Bank of England decision will help determine whether they can hit their targets for 6. Jack Carson, GB News.
From business, let's move back to education. And I think one of the failings of education is they don't teach enough business.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Right, so views on homework coming in overwhelmingly in favour of me here today. People just don't understand what planet you're on.
Yeah.
Ian says homework is usually completely unmarked. It upsets children who can't do it. It upsets an otherwise lovely family time, and it puts pressure on parents and children. Simone says it's ridiculous. The only aspect I respect is reading to and with your children.
Is that allowed?
Yeah,
yeah,
gosh,
you're okay with that.
I mean, you know, I never didn't read my children when they went to bed. You know, I think that's a good thing. And yeah, books are wonderful. Life is so hard and ridiculous nowadays that the robbing of children's chance to enjoy their childhood outside the regimented school hours is beyond
But my point is, it's part of enjoyment. It should be enjoyable. Anyway, Annette says, and she agrees with me, as a retired primary school teacher, my pupils did homework during my 38 years of teaching. It helped pupils to enforce learning and self-discipline. Reading and spelling need to be enforced at home during primary school years.
I've learnt enough. Between 9 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm all done with learning, I have to say. Colin says, imagine that you leave work at the end of a tough day. Your boss gives you some extra work to do in the evening. You'd soon change jobs, wouldn't you?
That's what I do every day.
The amount of homework is inversely proportional to the ability of the teacher. That's controversial, that is. And finally, finally, Jill says, I think it's cruel giving children work to take home. I agree.
I think it just indicates those people never having themselves enjoyed school or learning.
No. There should be a study periods at school, Jill. I agree with you. To expect any child to travel
these parents can't be
an
bothered.
hour each day.
Can't be bothered.
An hour each at the... Stop interrupting. There should be study periods at school to expect any child to travel an hour each day, end of the day, then do more homework at home. I find shocking. When can they play in the fresh air?
Oh, it's important to do all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You should do it all.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
I just don't see... I just always saw it as a penalty. I love learning. I mean, my idea of watching programmes, it's interesting, though. It's interesting that you and I would watch different TV programmes. I would watch... All my TV programmes are based on...
You learn from the TV.
Learning.
But that's passive.
Actually,
it's passive. It's not engaged. It's not asking you to question yourself or think or test your knowledge, or it's just absorbing what you're watching.
I always remember when I did A-level geography and used to talk about tectonic plates, volcanoes, whatever, and the teachers would say to you, good point, Eamonn, good point, very good. And they could see it wasn't from the textbooks, but I never told them it was from watching
TV,
Horizon. Yeah, it was watching Horizon.
Yeah, you see, whereas if I went home from school and I said to my mum we'd watched a video, she'd be furious and she'd be in the next day. I don't want those teachers playing videos in school.
No, I think audiovisual stuff can be really good.
Oh, it's a good debate. Let us know your thoughts.
Anyway, 17 minutes past the hour. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise.
So British gas owner Centrica say they've stopped applying for court warrants to force fit prepayment meters on people who've not paid their bills. The decision comes after a timed sting in which an undercover journalist accompanied debt collectors who entered the homes of vulnerable people.
In England and Wales, households will see water bills rise by 7.5% from April. The industry body, Water UK, says customers will pay an average of £31 more compared to last year. They describe it as the largest increase in water bills in almost 20 years.
Landlords have been urged to act now to address issues in social housing. The regulator of social housing found around 8,000 homes in England have the most serious damp and mould problems, and the watchdog research comes after the death of 2-year-old Awab Ishak, who was exposed to mould in a housing association flat. In Bulletin's mode, I do want to just quickly bring you some breaking news. The figures from Shell's Q4 profits have just been announced, and guess what? Up by 53% to $84.3 billion. That's 68 billion pounds, and that was in 2022, as I say, during the final part of the year, due to soaring oil prices. So that's the breaking news. Shell posting huge profits, up by more than 50%.
What do you think? Let us know. After the break, Paul Coit with all the big sports stories, including Man United going to Wembley again. We're the famous Man United and we're going to Wembley after this.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on
Absolutely.
Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Rate rise, as you despairing about your chances of getting a loan, a lease, hire purchase, or a mortgage.
It's like a Swiss cottage.
Yeah, so this is in somebody's back garden.
Oh, I love it. It's like a ski chalet.
Would you love to live there?
Why not?
It's a garden
quite romantic.
shed.
Imagine if you were newlywed.
Depends who you're with.
Shacked up in there. Oh, it's like a little cosy love palace. It's gorgeous.
Okay,
Anyway.
there you are. 20 past 8, we're going to be speaking to the journalist Sam Delaney, who's found a new lease of life since going sober, and he's now released a book called Sort Your Head Out.
Yeah, he's a self-confessed ultimate lad once upon a time. Interesting to hear his take on all things mental health.
Okay, get in touch, you know how to do it after this. Back pages, let's have a look at those. Here's how they stack up. The Star goes with Fred and Buried. Manchester United's League Cup semi-final victory over Nottingham Forest gives Eric Ten Hag his first attempt at English silverware. That's on Sunday, April the 26th. That'll be no pushover, of course. They'll be up against Newcastle. Meanwhile, the Mirror focuses on former player Danny Murphy's comments on Chelsea's new 107 million signing, Enzo Fernandez. It says he's not worth the price they paid. Who is? Huge stories made its way onto the front page of The Sun. It reports that a new government-approved regulator will be introduced into the national game. Paul Coyte's with me now. What about this? They've tried this before. It's a football charter.
Yeah, you're right, they have tried this before. We hear a lot about this, and the new charter, which has been leaked, it's basically everything that you would want it to be, but whether it's actually possible, I don't know. There's things like multimillionaires who can't show proof of their wealth will not be able to take over clubs and not be able to go in there and just say, look, we've got this and we're just going to take over.
We've seen this before.
We have seen this before. I mean, this is fit and proper owners. Again, that's what you'd want to see. You don't want any charlatan going in, taking over a club and then losing money.
And the club going bust then after it. But this is a lot of this is really protection for the lower leagues, isn't it?
It is. And also there's another thing that's in the Charter that's saying that money should go down the pyramid. But the thing is, again, how do you enforce it? It's a lovely idea that then the top clubs in the Premier League, look at Chelsea and how much money they've spent over the transfer window, the billions that they have, that it could filter down and look after other clubs. But how it's enforced, that's going to be the question. There's going to be a regulator to make sure that everything is adhered to, but we'll have to see when it happens. Only approved tournaments. The reason they say only approved tournaments is because of the ill-fated Super League, so clubs won't be able to sign up to that. I don't know what it means. They won't be able to do that. What are they going to do? They're going to fine them. You won't be able to play in other tournaments, which UEFA said anyway. Yeah. So, and also the other thing is that fans would be able to be more involved in what happens in the club, which is very important. And if it happens, which would be great, so if the club decides, you know what we're going to do, we're going to change the club's badge, we're going to change the colour of the shirts, fans will be able to come in and say, actually, we don't want that, and they'll have to say, OK, fine, if you say so. OK. So it sounds like a great idea. Hopefully it happens, but, you know, I'm a little sceptical about it.
So we've now got a Manchester United-Newcastle United final in the Carabao Cup.
Now, I've never been one to correct you, but I'm worried because don't turn up on April the 26th because it's February the 26th because you're going to miss the thing. So it's Sunday, February the 26th.
Oh, what did I say?
Yes, you said April, and
did I?
It was only because I was worried that you were going to miss.
No, I've already got my ticket, so you know, I know when it is. And it's
how long you had your tickets for? About 6 weeks now.
No, I got them last week. I got them last week, and it was it's my son's birthday, my 21-year-old son's birthday that day. So hopefully it'll be.
He's not a Newcastle fan, is he, by any chance? Because I don't want him to ruin have his birthday ruined. Yeah, it will be a terrific game, and I thought they were great. They did the job, didn't they, yesterday?
But isn't there an interesting point here about United without Ronaldo, without Paul Pogba?
Yeah.
And, you know, it shows the Ten Hag way is the way to go.
I've said it a lot. I doubted Ten Hag. I didn't think he was going to be the guy. But he's come in and he's been absolutely brilliant. And it all goes back to that time when Manchester United lost against Brentford earlier on in the season.
I was there.
It was a nightmare.
4 down at half-time.
And then he said to the players the next day, you are going to run the missing kilometres that you didn't do on the pitch. I know you did it as well. And Eric and Eamonn and the rest of the team went out and ran it.
This was at the start of the season. It was a lovely sunny Saturday afternoon. I was down in Brentford and everything was also... As a matter of fact, it was with Jamie Dornan.
Oh, of course you were, yeah.
And anyway, we were 4-0. We're 4-0 down.
I could tolerate football for Jamie Dornan. Anyway, as you were.
4-0 down at half-time. And I swear to God, I suddenly came all over nauseous and I went to the loos and I threw up. And I think it was the result. I think it was the way the match was going.
Up the bees.
And I actually had to leave. at half-time. We did get
you
one.
Really?
Yeah, I swear to God, yeah.
So are people walking out, seeing you and going, look at him, 4-0 down, he's not supporting the team, whereas really, it could have been just something you'd eaten, Eamonn.
Could have been 8-0 down.
It could have been. That was the turning point. That was the turning point.
So
and he said, I'm going to run with
him.
Jamie wasn't. He was surrounded by people, don't worry.
Okay,
Jamie didn't.
I was thinking, the next time, if he's going to be left on his own, I'm only down the road from Brentford.
I left him with Natalie Pinkham. It's funny who you bump into as well, yeah.
Right, what do you want me then? So I'm glad we got that sorted out. So,
by the way, speaking of tickets, I got my Wimbledon tickets this week. Very excited about that, yeah.
So did I.
Did you? See you there.
You're in the you're in the draw. You're in the ballot.
In the draw for the first time. Did it properly.
Eamonn doesn't need to do the ballot though, do you?
It's hard to get tickets any other way, to be honest.
Unless you're famous.
Well, we struggled.
What?
Anyway.
But anyway, Wimbledon's a beautiful event.
Yeah,
a beautiful event.
It is. A little way to go. So look forward to that at the end of July. Chelsea. Can I mention Chelsea?
Yes, do.
Chelsea, we didn't get a chance to mention Chelsea yesterday. The amount of money that they spent, we're talking millions and millions and millions. Enzo Fernandez signed from Benfica. Now, this is the most expensive player that we've ever had in this country. A huge amount of pressure on him. So he's come in, 106 million. And the amount of money that they've spent, I mean, there is a fact fact here, and it's that they've spent more in this window than all 78 clubs across the whole of Europe.
I don't really understand how financial fair play works.
This is where I struggle too. I think everybody does. And I think the thing is, to cut a very long explanation shorter, it's all to do with sponsorship and how much money is coming into the club and whether they can run as a sustainable business. Now, this is not my field of expertise, but there's always a ways around this, and this is what they are doing, and this is where you see players that are getting deals, they're getting 8-year deals.
Yeah, they're on hire purchase, basically.
That's pretty much it, because then they space it out. But UEFA have also now said they've noticed what's going on and said, well, from now on, you can't sign players on such long deals. I mean, if you're a player, you are set for life. That's it. You've got an 8-year deal. You think how much money you're going to earn. You can just sit on that and not worry. The whole idea is space it out.
Can I talk to you about Jimmy White and snooker? Jimmy White, 60 years of age, and he's just become the first player of that age or older since 1992 to make the last 16 of a ranking tournament.
Correct.
Now, in theory, age shouldn't really play a part in how good or bad you are.
It's not a very physical sport, is it?
No.
Yeah, it's not like you're throwing yourself over a high jump.
Right, well, let's think. Hand-eye coordination is one thing. That could go... And Jimmy White was known as the whirlwind. So it might be just a light breeze now, he's about 60, but, you know, that was his game. But it is an incredible thing. Now, the last person to do it, this was back in 1992, in the British Masters. I feel a question coming on.
My director tells me, he says Jimmy White's daughter's called Breeze.
There you go.
Really?
And they might be winding me up, but anyway.
I think there's a very good chance.
No, he's saying no.
No, legit.
Breeze White.
There you go.
Who was the last one to do it? Australian, 1992. You would have worked with him on Pot Black.
Yeah, now, wait a minute. What was your question? Your question
The last, Izzy knows it, the last person over 60 to qualify for a quarter-finals of a major tournament. So Jimmy White has done it in Germany at the German Masters. This is at the British Masters back in 1992. Eddie Charlton.
Eddie Charlton. I doubting his first name was Eddie. That's it, yeah.
But he was the last person to do it back in 92.
Do you know the last presenter to host Pot Black?
Was it Isabel?
Can you imagine me?
I killed Pot Black.
Can you imagine me? Did you? You'd be great on a sports quiz show.
I don't know about that.
What's his name?
But I enjoyed
Give me a second.
It was such a legacy thing. It was such an honour to have watched it for years on TV and then to be given it as a...
I can imagine. I can imagine. And was Ted Lowe still commentating there?
Ted Lowe was.
The great voice of Ted Lowe.
Yeah, Whispering Ted.
And would he talk to you that way?
Oh, my God,
if you'd speak to him, would he be, like, shouting and screaming?
He used to give me lifts everywhere. We used to go to the train station and around. He had this big Jaguar car. And lovely, lovely man. He went everywhere with his wife.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it was lovely. But Whispering Ted would come along. There were just some great characters on that whole circuit, the players and...
It's amazing days.
And the presenters and
that was the pomp. That was snooker's pomp. That was
Can you play snooker, Paul?
I've played. Actually, I do have a claim to fame. Is that I did, because I'm from Romford. I did join Steve Davis and Barry Hearn's famous Lucania snooker club, and I was a member there. And I think I played one frame, and that was the end of my membership. So I can say I'm pretty much.
You should remind me. I started playing about 1977, 1978. Instead of doing homework. I remember we used to go to clubs, we used to go to the snooker halls after, and Alex Higgins, of course.
It's called a misspent youth, is what it's called. That's what they say about snooker.
Go that far, but snooker was the big sport. It was the thing everybody watched and whatever.
See, when I was unchained from my desk by my cruel parents, joking, we had a pool table. I loved playing pool, different obviously from snooker, but I was all right.
Yeah.
And, you know...
So while you were doing homework, I was shooting
No, I was playing pool too.
We hope for the... whether those great days have come back, because, of course, there's the betting scandal with Chinese players, which has happened.
Yes.
So there's been some awful scandals that happen around the sport, and however much they try to modernise it, and it's like darts. Darts got a new rebirth with the World Championships.
Did I tell you when I hosted the World Darts?
You did darts as well.
And I'm mathematically dyslexic,
oh,
basically.
Did you?
Yes. I mean, it was a very difficult
number
job.
heavy.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
I did 3 years of the darts. And I always remember I flew flew home after the final once from, where was it, and what green, what's it called?
Frimley Green.
Frimley Green, yeah. And I caught a last plane back to Belfast at 10 o'clock, and I got into Belfast, I got home after midnight. My father leaned over the banisters and he looked down at me as I came in. He said, "Oh, you're back, son, yeah, okay." He said, "You were a bit nervous tonight, I thought." And he went back into the back into bed. I thought, "Thanks a lot."
You're okay though with 3 triple 20s though when you're 150.
No wonder I was nervous. Oh my gosh! But the people that can count that down just needs a triple 11.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
incredible!
The thing is, but it's one of those things they know off by heart. Everything is
Speak of counting things down, Paul. We've got to go to an advert break. I'm being told.
Okay.
There's a big number of losses for us.
I'll have to have a game of snooker myself. I'll be off down there. Yeah.
You're snookered. See you later. Thanks, Paul.
See you right after this.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There we are. It's 20 minutes to 8 on this Thursday morning. A very good morning to you, Eamonn and Isabel at breakfast on your radio, online and on TV.
Let's take a look at your newspaper front pages now. Start off with The Times. They're leading with reports of British Gas breaking into homes to install prepayment meters. And an update on this story is that as a result of this Times newspaper sting, they have said they are pausing the request for warrants in relation to these meters.
But when you say breaking in, what do you mean, like kicking the door down?
With a warrant, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty tough. And there's one of the guys, he's taking the rap for it, front page there, but let's say he loves his job, basically. Here's the Telegraph, OK? Now, this is a big story as well. RAF facing a crisis over their push to recruit more women and ethnic minorities, if you delve into that one there. And here's the Mail.
Yeah, it's focusing on a new law to stop schools from striking in the future. Specifically, I think it's to try and inform teachers and indeed parents exactly what the intentions are of striking teachers. There needs to be laws against streaking teachers, that's for sure. Anyway.
I'm just noticing that front page there, the Irish as drunks and imbeciles. Well, one of those statements could be true, and the other one we quite like. We quite like being underestimated.
That's in relation to the Banshees of Inisharan. That's the lovely voice of Claire Muldoon.
Thank God, Claire, you said it correctly. If I hear another critic going, and a new film, Inisharan, but oh, for goodness sake.
Bit of insulin.
We're lucky they can say Banshee.
Here's the Guardian.
Did a Banshee ever come to your door?
No.
No, I hope it's not. What's in the Guardian?
A married one.
That's another story. Here's another story on the front of The Guardian. They are talking about the bill that the taxpayer is footing, thanks to the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who needed legal advice after the Partygate scandal.
Well, he did it while he was in the job, you know, so maybe not. Nicola Bulley over so many of the papers as well.
And stunning woman.
And they're asking there, when will someone care? And that is after the death of that little girl you see there, after being mauled by their pet dog. Let's go through some of those stories and lots of other stories in the papers. We've got Claire Muldoon and we have got Freddie Gray. Very good to see you both. Thank you. Freddie, we're going to talk about Dominic Raab, increasing questions over him and if he's going to last the pace.
Well, yes, this is in The Guardian again. The Guardian seems to smell blood with the Dominic Raab story. I think they think if they just keep going on about it, they will get him out. There'll be another scalp for this newspaper. The funny thing about this Dominic Raab bullying story is it's been rumbling on for months now. We aren't hearing any really serious allegations yet. We're hearing a lot of people saying it's very bad. There's a lot of bullying. People felt at every department he's worked in, people didn't like him. And I think that's clear. You know, civil servants didn't like Dominic Raab. He's quite a combustible character, and he's pretty tough. But I mean, at the moment, the leading allegations that he said a swear word. I won't say it on breakfast television, but it has a B and an S in it. And he said that during a meeting.
I hate to contradict you.
OK.
But the Mail yesterday, Dominic Raab is accused of leaving staff feeling suicidal and behaving like a controlling and abusive partner. Other people reporting that they were off work sick as a result of being belittled and humiliated. So they are quite serious allegations.
All those words sound dramatic, but what has he actually done? I mean, anyone can say I feel suicidal. There's some allegation that he threw a tin of tomatoes.
Oh, there was the tomatoes.
Yeah, which, you know, is probably a bit much.
Why would you have a tin of tomatoes
with you?
in your office?
Very good question. I have no idea.
Is it tomato soup or a tin of tomatoes?
Tin of tomatoes.
I think it was just a tomato from a sandwich, no?
Oh, I thought it was a tin of tomatoes. Oh, OK, maybe I got the wrong...
You say tomato, I say tomato.
Yeah, irrelevant. It's still egregious as far as I'm concerned.
Tin would be a more serious assault.
I once had a typewriter thrown at me.
Oh, really? I had a stapler thrown at my head by a teacher once.
By a teacher. We had the dusters thrown at us, as well.
I can't think that I've ever had anything thrown at me in the workplace.
Oh, I've had
apart from Paddy's. Toys out of
telephone
prams,
thrown at me.
Sorry.
Cup and saucer thrown at me, all by the one boss, incidentally.
Was the boss female?
No. It was a very
okay.
angry male. Basically, I think he was a failed presenter and he hated me. Because I was young and gorgeous and very talented. That was...
Sorry.
What are you now, Eamonn, then?
What's that?
What are you now?
Oh, I've got old and over the hill.
By the way...
Things will be thrown,
I'm in contradicting mood, sorry. I've just been told it was a tomato from a pret-a-manger sandwich.
Oh, my word.
Right, OK, so Freddie's point is, really? You're saying, right, so that makes you suicidal, does it?
I think civil servants are quite pathetic. There we go. I think there is a culture in the civil service at the moment to describe anything as bullying that makes anybody vaguely uncomfortable. And we saw with the working from home thing during the pandemic, I think a lot of civil servants do not like being told what to do by politicians. And the country cannot work if heads of departments are not able to get their departments in shape. And we see this at the Ministry of Justice. There are major problems with justice in this country that a tough minister needs to take charge of. I don't know. There could be worse allegations, but I think if he threw a tomato from a Pret sandwich.
But Freddie, look, you know I am a big Freddie fan, but I do think it's irrelevant whether or not there's even any sort of physical evidence of bullying. The point is, you know, in this mental health crisis that we're...
It's easy to say, Isabel, isn't it?
Perhaps it is, but I think the fact that there's 24 considered to be serious and separate allegations requires taking seriously, not least if somebody says they are feeling suicidal as a direct result. I think we shouldn't shrug that sort of thing off. We should take it incredibly seriously.
Well, yes, but, I mean, or perhaps he's just unpopular with civil servants and there is a sort of conspiracy to get him out.
Well, he's been in the government for so long. Why is this all coming out now? That's the other question. He's been in many different roles within the government and he seems to be quite highly regarded within the Conservative Party. So one would ask, why is this coming out now? I would suggest, however, that throwing a tomato out of a sandwich would have taken time and effort to actually, one, do it and to propel it, knowing the effect it would have. So why is he doing this? Why is it reported? And, you know, as one of the papers said, any other institution, the person would be removed whilst it was investigated, and yet he still is in his office.
OK. You go to the eye here.
I do indeed.
See, this is about recruitment into what is this, the police we're talking about?
It is the police, and the recruitment target of 20,000 officers as vetting is stretched to the limit because they just can't do it. They just don't have the protocols in place in order to recruit the officers needed to fill the voids across England. And I couldn't believe this. The Police Federation says morale in policing is at rock bottom as a result of, get this, poor pay, constant scrutiny, and the number of voluntary resignations has also risen by 200% in the past decade. I would say that the morale is at rock bottom because public opinion is such that no one trusts the police anymore with regards to what's happened not only with Sarah Everard, but the WhatsApp groups, the constant misogyny, the abuse, the inability to actually police. And I remember saying to you, Eamonn, a couple of months ago, a good few months ago in September, October, one of your viewers picked up on it. And I said then there's more policing that happens in Happy Valley, which is a fictional programme, than actually does on the streets of England, Scotland and Wales at the moment and Northern Ireland. And it's an absolute aberration. People should feel safe in their homes knowing that the areas are being policed. Where are the local community policemen?
The areas are not going to be policed if you can't fill the shortfall of 20,000 new recruits.
Yes, but also it's because of the vetting systems they've got in place, and we've also spoken about...
So to make sure that we're not going to get abusive police officers or whatever and the right type of person in the job, the vetting systems are there. So are you saying ease up on the vetting system?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is we need to police that even more. No irony, no pun intended. We need to actually police that even more because it's crucial that we get these bobbies on the beat, and it's crucial that we get people reporting crimes and the crimes being dealt with, because at the moment they just aren't.
That's because we assume there'll always be police officers. People will always want to put on a uniform and do that. But the thing is, Freddie, if you look around, would you do it? Would I do it? Would Isabel do it? Would Claire do it? It would take a lot to get you to do. We just rely on other people. Oh, somebody will do it. Somebody will do it.
No, but it is vocational. I mean, people, when kids were young, they used to have police uniforms, you know, they used to dress up in. But they just don't seem to have the same cachet anymore. There is not the same respect anymore, not only for the Met, but for other constabularies throughout the country. I mean, look at Cressida Dick. Look what happened in her watch. I mean, it's atrocious. There is no pride and there's no place for trust.
Well, talking about crimes and whether they get investigated or indeed prosecuted, Freddie, you've got this from the front of the Telegraph about fraud and how it seems it's the crime of choice these days.
It is, and this is a big police failure at the moment, but it's difficult for them because, I mean, the levels of fraud since the advent of the internet are extraordinary. And the latest figures are that 1 in every 1,000 fraud cases will be prosecuted. So if you get conned by text message, I'm sure we all know, probably it's happened to my wife, it's happened to my parents endlessly, you are left with no legal recourse.
Yeah.
And essentially we're just saying companies are going to pay for most of these crimes anyway. And it's people think of it as a victimless crime, but it's not necessarily.
Well, the judges, it happened to me, and the judge, the guy that went to court for me and a few other people, and the judge said it's a victimless crime, so the guy didn't do any time at all whatsoever. But it was a victimless crime from the point of view that they think you're reimbursed by your credit card company or the bank or whatever it is. But the stress that put me through as to who did this, how could this have happened, who do you trust, who do you not trust? So
we made the mistake of Airbnb-ing our home for a month, and while we were gone, a sort of criminal gang took over our property. And we had all these credit cards, just masses and masses of credit cards arriving from every company you can imagine that could give a credit card. Yeah. And they had actually copied, for some reason they were doing it through the envelope, they're copying out the number and then using it for very small payments all over the place. And we were just having to shut it down. And in the end, we got all our money back. But it was 2 months of absolute hell. We had to, our credit rating suffered and all that sort of stuff. It's a complete nightmare, and the government are about to launch a new report on this. I hope they take it seriously, because it's something people are really concerned about.
But you know what? Whether they take it seriously or not, it isn't going to be resourced properly.
No.
That's what we mean. At the end of the day, they don't have the expertise or the manpower to make sure that what happened to you doesn't happen again to other people.
But then it's also a good question of, even if you throw as much money as you like at it, how do you stop online fraud?
Yeah.
But as you said, though, Freddie, you said that the companies will pay it, whatever, but in reality it's us that will end up paying the companies through another way. So the companies are absolutely fine. It's us, the punters at the bottom of the food chain, that will ultimately have to pay.
Yeah.
We have to leave it there, and we're going to give our viewers and listeners a bulletin. But Claire, can I request we bring back the story about Delilah being banned by Welsh rugby chiefs?
Why? Would you want that back?
Indeed, I just thought it was a really interesting talking point. But we say goodbye to Freddie.
Well, the idea is that they think it's trivialising domestic violence because...
she's quiet once the knife
is in the hand.
Yeah, what are the exact words? He heard her laugh and then she laughed no more. Or was it he laughed? Who died?
The wife. He silenced her with a knife.
So Delilah died. Yeah. But, and do you know what? Sometimes
I didn't even
people
know
are a bit
I didn't either.
intense.
Who listens to the lyrics? Who knows the lyrics?
But,
Well, that's the great blessing being me, because I can sing everything, but I don't know the words to anything. Just make them up as I go along.
I can hum a tune.
8 minutes now to 8 o'clock.
Let's bring you up to date with today's top stories. And Shell says this morning its profits have increased by more than 53%, with earnings of more than £68 billion in the final quarter of 2022. The energy giant has benefited from soaring oil prices.
Prime Minister's under pressure to reveal what he knew about bullying allegations against Dominic Raab, as we've just been discussing. His political opponents say that his time in office has been defined by political scandals and a faltering economy.
Interest rates are expected to rise to 4% later as the Bank of England makes its 10th increase in a row. However, some experts say the cycle of hikes could be ending soon, with interest likely to peak at 4.5% at the next increase.
And the parents of the missing Lancashire mother, Nicola Bulley, say they fear that someone has taken their daughter.
Yes, her father says the area next to the River Wyre where she disappeared from shows no signs of a slip or fall, but police do not believe at the moment that she was attacked.
She was last seen walking her dog along the river on Friday morning. Soon after, the mum of two's dog was found off its lead, with the witness describing it as being in an agitated state.
Our reporter Will Hollis has the details.
Nearly a week on from her disappearance, and there's still no answer as to what happened to Nicola Bulley. Yet her friends are holding on to hope that they can find her.
Knowing that her two little girls are at home missing mummy, and knowing that mummy is missing, is what's driving us forward. We know that knowing Nikki, her family are everything, and we know without a doubt that if she could be at home with them, that's where she'd be. We are just trying to hold on to the hope.
The making sense doesn't make sense if you gather us. Again, Nikki is just a lovely human being inside and out, living a normal life, dropping the children off at school, going on a daily walk, things planned, going out at the weekend, seeing friends and family. Yeah, you just can't make sense that this is actually happening and here we are.
Nicola vanished from St Michael's in Lancashire last Friday. She dropped her kids off at school, then walked her dog Willow, a spaniel, down a familiar route along the River Wyre at around 9:15. It's a popular place and usually busy. That was the last time she was seen. An hour later, her dog was found between the river and a bench. On the seat was her phone, still connected to a conference call. The sudden disappearance remains a mystery. Lancashire Police is keeping an open mind, but says it doesn't think she was attacked and isn't treating the case as criminal. The force and its partners are focusing on the river. The worry is that she's fallen in. Police divers and fire and rescue teams with sniffer dogs search below, while helicopters scan from the sky. Meanwhile, a man described as a key witness is speaking with officers. People living here in St Michael's are trying to make sense of what's happened to Nicola, but that's not all they're doing. They're also trying to help. And the local tennis club is being used as a base so that people can come down and offer their support. They've got maps of different walks along the River Wyre, and every day groups of people are walking those routes trying to find Nicola. Even with the community treading every inch of the river's edge, the puzzle is yet to be solved. At home, Nicola's partner and family are stuck wondering. Her two young girls just want their mummy back. Will Hollis for GB News.
Terrible story that. Stay with us. After the break, we'll have more on Rishi Sunak's 100 days in office.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind. And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Rishi Sunak marks 100 days in office, defined by scandals and strikes.
Good morning. It is 8 o'clock. It's Thursday, the 2nd of February. Thank you so much for your company. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
And leading that news this morning, Rishi Sunak reaches 100 days in office today, with his premiership plagued by strike action and ministerial scandals. New polling puts the Prime Minister behind Labour, with the majority of people saying he's not doing a good job.
Interest rates are predicted to rise to 4% today, which could be the highest level since the 2008 financial crash. If that happens, the move would be the Bank of England's 10th consecutive rate increase.
From lad mags to relaxing in midlife, you can meet the journalist Sam Delaney, who says young men need better role models than people like Andrew Tate, and they should take life more seriously.
And she's beating, can you believe it, pop stars like Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift in the iTunes charts. We'll be introducing you to the unsigned singer-songwriter Bailey Tompkinson, who's swapping the local pub gigs for the world stage.
Well, it's politics that leads the news this morning. The Prime Minister marks 100 days in office, with his premiership so far defined by ministerial scandals and strike action.
Well, in the wake of the walkouts by teachers and rail workers yesterday, the PM now faces another crisis, with his deputy, Dominic Raab, facing calls to resign over mounting bullying allegations.
New data from YouGov suggests that 56% of people think that Mr Sunak is doing a bad job as Prime Minister, as he trails 21 points behind the Labour leader Keir Starmer.
Interesting, though. Both of them think that he's doing better than Boris or Liz from that. So it sounds bad, but it is an improvement. Look, our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, has been taking a look at Sunak's time as PM so far and what the next 100 days might hold. A warning, though, this report will contain some flash photography.
It was the job he fought for, then assumed he would never get. But on October 25th last year, Rishi Sunak walked into Downing Street as our new Prime Minister.
I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government in his name.
His first 100 days have been marked by the 3 S's: strikes, sleaze and stability. The Prime Minister's undoubted first success had been to stabilise the panicky financial markets after the calamitous tenure of Liz Truss. Confidence has been restored, but the economy remains bruised. Inflation continues to punch into double digits. Interest rates are still rising, and Britain is faced with a recession this year, unlike any other G7 economy. Real-term wage cuts are also provoking mass industrial action, not seen for decades. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, railway workers, bus drivers, frankly, the list goes on and on, have joined picket lines with no end in sight. Rishi Sunak has also failed to get away from the mire of Tory sleaze, losing 2 cabinet ministers so far. Gavin Williamson resigned within weeks amid bullying claims, and Nadeem Zahawi was sacked over his tax affairs. But the Home Secretary, who was found to have broken the ministerial code, remains in place, as does Dominic Raab, who's facing his own claims of workplace bullying. So maybe it's not a surprise the opinion polls are looking grim for the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party. Some are now predicting a 1997 wipeout. The government insists, however, there is a narrow path to victory at the next election. And with a spring budget and local election campaign ahead, it is the next 100 days that will determine just how narrow that path is. Darren McCaffrey, GB News.
So a bit of a mixed bag result there from Darren McCaffrey. Let's get the views of our political correspondent Tom Harwood. How would you assess his first 100 days?
Well, it's very tricky because, of course, he inherited a very sticky wicket for the Conservative Party. Many Conservatives believed that replacing yet another Prime Minister would have them soaring in the polls, would stabilise things back to where they were before the summer. And yet that hasn't really happened. We've seen this enormous gulf in the polls being really quite remarkably steady. And it is interesting how when Boris Johnson was sort of forced out, there was a single-digit gulf in those polls. That has now really ballooned into this more than double-digit, 2 times double-digit gulf in those polls. And it hasn't really made that big an impact in terms of creeping back. There have been some ups and downs there. But ultimately, in terms of what the Prime Minister has been doing, he's been trying to seem like he has been fixing some of these problems. And we've got a raft of legislation coming in this parliamentary session that is going to aim for those big 5 priorities that Rishi Sunak has assessed as being the things that the people of the country care about the most, whether it's getting inflation down, getting the economy growing, getting debt down, cutting those waiting lists, and indeed stopping the boats. And I've committed those to memory, as I'm sure the whole country
we all have.
would
I mean, they've drilled it into us, haven't they?
The
trouble, I suppose, with Rishi Sunak is he doesn't have the normal tenure of a Prime Minister to define his legacy. So this 100 days, it's almost like a zoomed-in look at him, because we've got the May elections coming up and then next year a general election. He has no time, really, to try and tell us who he is, not least because the country seems to be completely on strike and the scandal after scandal within his party, plus not 1, not 2, but 3 former Prime Ministers seemingly circling around him in the Commons.
Yes, it's interesting. There is now what's called the growth group of Conservative MPs, many of those who associate themselves with Liz Truss, who seem to be gearing up for some sort of intervention. We hear that Liz Truss herself might well be making some sort of intervention in the run-up to the budget.
Does that surprise you, Tom?
Indeed, she retweeted yesterday an article from Brandon Lewis, who of course served in her cabinet, as well as Boris Johnson's, about the need to go for growth policies. So those with sort of eagle eyes in Westminster look like there is something sort of moving there. There's a group of around 50 of those MPs who call themselves the growth group, and they may well be making a bit more of a noise as the year progresses.
Can I just talk to you about Dominic Raab? Of course, there's this investigation into his behaviour, and much was being made of it by the leader of Labour at PMQs yesterday. We were just discussing it on papers, and I was sort of saying we should take bullying allegations seriously. I'm alone in this. Our viewers, Lawrence says it appears Raab was sick of the lazy staff and was getting a grip of them. Ellis says, was he a bully or just a good boss? Duncan says we could do with a lot more passion like this in government. Reginald says, what is this unacceptable behaviour? There have been no credible examples, which is what Freddie Gray was saying. Linda says, we know the civil servants are out to get certain Tories and it's a witch hunt. BA says, perhaps Raab was just trying to get people to do their job. You get the idea. So perhaps, it's not bad judgment we're seeing from Rishi Sunak.
Well, this is the argument, isn't it? That it's sometimes very hard to determine what crosses a line into this nebulous concept of bullying and what is actually someone just saying, well, do your job, or that work isn't good enough, do it again. And so that's why Adam Tolley KC was implemented, was called up by Rishi Sunak. Before, of course, he had an ethics advisor, so this sort of ran in parallel with the other ethics advisor. That investigation is now stretched into its 4th month. So it really is very, very thorough, speaking to all of these different complainants and indeed private secretaries from the various departments that Mr Raab has been a Secretary of State in. I think it's understandable that this will be a pretty hefty tome. It will be quite a thorough bit of work. And really, it's only after that, this is the government's argument, that you can determine whether or not this stuff really is as bad as many people have said it is, because ultimately that dispassionate look where all of those facts are set out in black and white is the way to assess it, rather than hearsay or he said, she said.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, looking ahead to lunchtime today, well, certainly noon, the Bank of England is predicted to deliver its 10th interest rate rise in a row. We're expecting 4%, and if that happens, the move would be a continuation of the quickest series of hikes for more than 30 years. Crunching through the numbers now, joining us in studio, economics commentator Laurie Laird. Good to see you, Laurie.
Good morning.
If we didn't feel squeezed already, this would ensure that we will.
Yeah, I think people are feeling pretty confident that the Bank of England will go for half a percentage point, 50 basis points, although it's not quite a slam dunk. The last time the Bank of England met, there are 9 people who decide interest rates. 2 of those people said, we don't want to see any interest rates at all. We think the economy is weakening so rapidly that we want to see what has happened with the interest rate hikes that we've already implemented. So it's not that easy to predict the Bank of England's movements right now, but the feeling is 50 basis points, half a percentage point. I think what people are looking for is, where does this stop? When do we get to the terminal rate? And we're hoping that the Bank of England may give us a little bit of information on that today.
OK. For people who think, I mean, when we talk about these interest rate rises, we always attach them to mortgages and
Absolutely.
mortgages.
Absolutely.
This affects so much more than mortgages, doesn't it?
It affects anyone who has any debt. If you have any credit card debt, a lot of us have credit card debt. And everything is keyed off what's called bank rate. It goes all the way through the system. And it tends to be, we do see consumer interest rates on mortgage rates, credit card debt. We tend to see that go up pretty quickly. We don't tend to see it come down. It's stickier on the way down. A lot of people think that because the economy is pretty weak, we're probably the only economy to go into recession this year, that we're going to have to see some interest rate cuts fairly soon, maybe even as soon as this year. So the question will be, will those rates come down as quickly as they went up?
Go up.
Can I pick your brains on some financial news that broke in the last hour or so, when we heard from Shell that their profits have increased by a whopping 53% for last year, up to £68 billion. And I suppose for people who are struggling to heat their homes this winter, that is a real jarring
We've
figure.
seen strong results from all the oil companies, but Shell's have been even better than anyone else's. A lot of them saw a slowdown in the fourth quarter, not Shell. They made a lot of money on their gas trading operations. I think what's really going to frustrate people with Shell is not so much that they're making a lot of money, it's that they also announced share buybacks. They announced an increase in their dividend. And essentially what this is giving money to people who already have shares in Shell. And I think that is what's really going to rankle with people, that these profits are not being distributed through the wider economy. And in fact, up until October, Shell had paid none of that windfall tax. Remember all the controversy over the windfall tax for oil companies? Up to October, Shell said, sorry, guys, we don't disagree with the windfall tax, but it doesn't apply to us. In fact, we're losing money on some of our UK investments. We're not paying that windfall tax. And I think that will really rankle. They expected to pay some of that windfall tax in Q4, but also increasing their dividend. That doesn't look great.
It doesn't look great. I mean, let's just take, forecourts. Why can't they reinvest some of this indecently high profit into forecourts and say, do you know what, we're going to do you all a favour, and they start some sort of price war at the pumps, and they knock some money off, which they can well afford on that sort of profitability.
Well, they don't tend to make all that, believe it or not, they don't tend to make all that money at the pump because No,
I know that, but why can't they then take the profit that they're earning elsewhere to subsidise the pumps? That's what I'm saying.
I think Shell would say, look, 2/3 of what you pay at the pump is actually tax.
Yeah.
So we can't do a great deal. Shell only has some control over about 1/3 of what you pay at the pump. So that would be Shell's answer. I think their other response would be, okay, what we can do is we could invest to bring down crude oil prices across the world. So that makes that 1/3 that's variable. Perhaps we can bring that down. But Shell could also say, look, if we invest in new exploration to increase the supply of crude oil across the world, sure, maybe we'll do that. But then we have the government on the other side saying, you can't invest in fossil fuels. This is no longer green. We want you to invest in hydrocarbons. So I don't want to defend big oil, and I know you're looking for me to do it.
No, I'm simply, if I was running Shell,
getting mixed messages here.
I would want to look that we are philanthropic. I would want to look that,
You've got people's doors being knocked down by British Gas and other energy providers, and then
Shell. With Shell, you've got a better argument. The guy who used to run Shell, Ben Van Beurden, right before he left said, I don't have a problem with windfall taxes. All of us, he was speaking at an oil and gas conference in October, and he said, all of us, we do have to pay more. We are making money. So I think if you want to put forth this argument, Shell's definitely the place where you start with it, where ExxonMobil, the US company, BP, they're not hearing that argument at all.
Yeah, well, Laurie, it just seems everything's going up, nothing's coming down.
Not quite yet.
With all eyes on the Bank of England at midday today, our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper has been finding out what impact it could have on landlords.
Thank you, Laurie. That was very good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Tom.
According to real estate company Zoopla, the average rent in the UK in 2022 was 12.1% higher than the year before. But with the ripple effect of increased prices, many landlords are being left with no other choice.
A lot of our tenants are understandably asking if there's anything that we can do about their rent to bring it down. And unfortunately, in some cases, we've had to actually put the rent up because our bills have gone up and up and up. We've got the utility expenses which have risen dramatically. We've got interest rates and the costs of our mortgages going up substantially. We've got the cost of labour and materials for repair and maintenance all going up. And this is having a huge effect on our business. It's all hitting the bottom line.
Landlords are often perceived as the bad guys. Of course, there are some who take advantage of tenants and increase prices by inordinate amounts. But is it fair to villainise them all?
As landlords get put under further and further pressure, as they are called out in the public media, it does make it increasingly difficult to run businesses. It makes that conversation with tenants increasingly difficult because that relationship's really, really important. But I think to taint all of the landlords with that same brush is dangerous.
The cost of living is effectively forcing landlords into a proverbial corner. And yet, many people are still calling for the government to impose a cap on private rental increases. However, as more and more landlords are driven out of the sector, there are fears around how capping could impact the supply of available housing.
If you want to encourage people to bring their properties to the market, if you want to have a sensible supply of properties, then actually the last thing that you should think about doing is capping rents. From the outside looking in, I can see that that might be an attractive move in the context of cost of living, but it's a false economy. And I think, government will need to tread very carefully before it starts meddling in the private rented sector.
Ultimately, as prices rise for tenants, they also rise for landlords. The challenge now is finding a short-term solution in which both sides can survive. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
And with that, we bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise. The petition calling for fair pay for nursing staff has now reached 100,000 signatures. It will be delivered to 10 Downing Street later, with the Royal College of Nursing claiming the Prime Minister is yet to solve the NHS crisis.
British gas owner Centrica say they've stopped applying for court warrants to force-fit prepayment meters on people who've not paid their bills. The decision comes after a time sting in which an undercover journalist accompanied debt collectors who entered the homes of vulnerable people.
The Health Secretary says England's set to be one of the first countries in the world to to wipe out hepatitis B. It comes as the World Health Organization said its transmission from mothers to their babies has effectively been eliminated in England.
Just having a quick look for views on the oil profits. Steve saying the oil giants' profits are on the back of all of our suffering, ridiculous price increases on our energy bills. John says, great news on BP's 50% increased profits for the final quarter. This will mean more tax for the UK government to help with financing the recovery. I wish that was the case. Shirley, huge to say the least. However, Shell and similar companies had a few extremely tricky years recently. And Duncan says, a massive profit, which might seem a bit greedy, but not as greedy as the government's fuel taxation, which is the point, I suppose, Laurie was making there.
Yeah, true. Look, we're going to take a break there. And right after that, Sam Delaney, who is a very good journalist, and he's written a lot of really good books.
Funny, really funny guy.
He's sarcastic, he's funny, he's a very good friend of mine, and he's here talking about how getting sober has really helped his whole mental health and whatever. He's going to take you through the journey with his new book, Sort Your Head Out, after this.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. Do you have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 8:23 still to come on the programme this morning.
A singer without a record label has beaten Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift in the iTunes charts. You can meet her. We'll speak to her at 8:45. Bailey Tompkinson is her name, and boy, she got a voice.
And as a new study finds that more people would rather go for a walk with their dog than go on a mini break with their partner. Really? At 9:20, we'll be asking Love Island star and huge dog lover, but also presumably fiancé lover, Olivia Attwood, who she would prefer to couple up with.
You're so good at getting in touch, sharing your stories, sharing your views. Please keep doing it. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
With the rise of controversial influencers like Andrew Tate, who promoted toxic masculine persona, many have asked, did the rise of lad mags in the late 90s have a hand in creating this kind of culture?
Well, joining us now, the author, the broadcaster, the journalist, the all-round smart guy, Sam Delaney. He enjoyed all the perks of working alongside the editors and celebrities who helped build the lad mag empire. Sam's a very good friend of mine, I should say, so I'm allowed to do all of this. But things that I didn't know, that lifestyle, it didn't agree with him. He found it unhealthy. It took a heavy toll on his mental health as well. And he's brought a book out, and the book is called Sort Your Head Out, which he details the story on this. And Sam, that's the thing, my friend. I was never aware that there was anything wrong. Sometimes you heard people around saying, you know, Sam's not well. And I said, no, I don't know, because every time I meet him, he's all right.
Yeah, I think that, like a lot of guys, there was sort of struggles constantly below the surface. Obviously, I'm quite an outgoing guy. I'm, you know, a bit of a Jack the Lad, as you said there in your intro. I sort of made a living out of it for many years. And a lot of that persona is based around being loud, confident, funny, and not taking anything seriously, especially yourself. But actually, as I got older, I started to feel very stressed and overwhelmed by, you know, the mixed sort of pressures of family, career, maintaining that kind of social life. It was too much. But the problem was, it'd be too much for anyone, but the problem was is that I'd sort of grown up in a culture of never taking yourself seriously, never moaning, thinking that complaining about anything was basically whinging.
Yeah.
And so I kept it all inside. And that's why even people I knew very well, like yourself, wouldn't have known. And I think that once the magic bullet for me, when I started to get better, because for many years as I was approaching 40, I just started to drink too much. You know, I started to drink too much. Rather than be a social drinker, I was drinking all the time to cope with the level of exhaustion that I felt. And that obviously was a bad solution, but it was all I kind of knew because it was a culture I'd grown up in.
And did it change you? Did it change your personality? Were you a good drunk, a bad drunk? What were you drinking?
Do you know what? I was someone who, in the sort of social groups I hung around in, I always say people were surprised to hear that I had a drink problem because amongst my mates, I wasn't even in the Champions League places. I was barely in the Europa League places, right? Yeah. Because it wasn't sort of a public thing for me. You know, I doubt you've ever seen me drunk.
No.
You know, even years ago, though I haven't drunk for 8 years now. But
I genuinely haven't.
No, but we've known each other since when I was drinking, and I was never really a drunk person. The thing with me is, as I started to get very, very stressed, this is in my late 30s, I started drinking more on my own in the day. So people would see me at the pub at the football on a Saturday and I'd be having a few beers like anyone else, nothing more. But what they didn't realise was the next day I'd be sat in the pub working on my laptop but drinking the whole time. I'd be drinking late at night after my wife and children went to bed. I'd be staying up drinking in order to get to sleep. So there was a kind of a secrecy about it and I was using it not for fun but to cope, you know.
Well, look, my blood almost runs cold hearing this because I think it's so relatable to anyone with young kids and careers and, you know, just those pressures that are just so huge on people at that stage in their lives. But the difference, I suppose, between you and me is I talk a lot about how I'm feeling. I'm just on social media yesterday, I was saying I'm so overwhelmed, like, oh, have I got the balance right? Yeah. It's a bloke thing, right? This is a real problem and we've seen it with mental health issues that guys don't come forward and talk about their feelings. Huge suicide problem in guys under 40. What is the solution? Is it not to complain, but, you know, how do you sort your head out?
It's to share and be honest, and that's why I wrote this book. You've just described it exactly right. Sharing is a big relief for two reasons. When I kept it inside, one is I thought I was alone and I was the only person. So I thought, actually, I've got a really privileged life. You know, I've got a good career, I've got a loving family, I've got loads of privileges in life, so who am I to complain or feel bad about it? So that's the first thing. you feel alone because you're embarrassed to share it, then you feel ashamed of your feelings as well. And then you come to realise, well, it doesn't matter what your life is or how many privileges you have, you're still a human being. We all have ups and downs. And once you start to share and realise that there's other people out there who might support you or just relate to you, it's a huge relief. So what I'm trying to do is tell my story in order to encourage other blokes to share as well and make them understand that talking about this stuff doesn't have to be boring or earnest or weird. You can still do it with a sense of humour. You can still take the mickey out of yourself a bit. It doesn't have to be awkward.
So we've heard the problems, and you're saying the solution, so one of many, I suppose, is the first step is talk about this and share this. So when you say sort your head out, what does that actually mean?
Well, sort your head out, we've got, you know, if you're anything like me, and I know there's a lot of other guys out there like this, is that your head is filled with 1,000,001 different pressures, 1,000,001 different problems, 1,000,001 different personas that you try to juggle between your family life, your work life, your social life. And things get very complicated and it's hard to unpick it. I compare it to like the tangled wires in your drawer where you keep your chargers and your headphones, you know. And unpicking it is very difficult, but it's much easier once you start being open and sharing and realise that other guys are dealing with the same stuff. And like Isabel says, you have similar pressures, but the fact that you feel capable of being honest about it, that it's true what they say, the truth sets you free. Once you're honest and open about it. The other thing that I realised was I was absolutely astounded by the empathy that was shown by everyone, especially my mates, who I thought would be like, oh, Sam's turned weird. He stopped drinking and started talking about his feelings. Quite the opposite. I mean, a lot of them were happy and they thought that it led an example for them. And the ones who didn't want to get involved in those conversations, they were just very indifferent in a polite way. But there was a huge amount of empathy, and that's the thing that's blown me away, is the way people respond.
Was that who you were talking to, your mates, or did you go and see someone professional?
I went to see a therapist. When I first wanted to give up drinking, I was really struggling. I kept trying and then failing all the time, you know, non-stop for a couple of years trying to quit. And in the end, I went to see a therapist, and she gave me the advice based on what I told her about my drinking, that my option was to kind of give up completely rather than cut down, which is what worked for me, and that was very liberating. And then I carried on seeing her.
How long are you off the booze?
7.5 years so far.
And how does that hurt?
No, not in the least. It's not something that I have ever pangs or urges for. Quite the opposite. If I ever think about it, occasionally I might have a dream. A lot of ex-drinkers have this, where you've accidentally had a drink or you've forgotten you don't drink, and it's like a nightmare. You wake up terrified. And I can tell you that, you know, through good times and bad, because obviously bad times still come when you're sober, it's so much easier when you haven't got a hangover and you feel kind of capable and energised and clear-headed to cope with all of the issues that come your way, rather than when issues come my way thinking I'll numb this out with a drink. It just makes everything worse.
I mean, yeah, that's really interesting. You're leaning into the feelings in a way, because, again, I definitely know of friends and peers, and I've certainly had a glass of wine when the overwhelm is too much, and it helps. But you're saying that, you know, you've got to feel those feelings.
You have got to feel them. And I think someone said to me once, you know, I started drinking down the park with my mates when I was about 12, 13, like a lot of lads of my generation did. Someone said, that's where your emotional development stops. Because that's where you start using drink or drugs or any of the other things you use when you're a teenager to sort of cope with the bad times. So then when I turned 40, I got sober. I'm 47 now. And it was almost like I had to catch up on all the emotional development that I'd missed out on in those years, a few decades. And what that really meant was, exactly like you say, Isabel, leaning into feelings. When different emotions come along, different problems come along, rather than run away from them, you confront them, you deal with them. It can be difficult, but each time you do it, it becomes easier and easier. And you feel so much more in control of your life, because when bad things happen, you're not running, you're not scared. You kind of learn how to cope.
We started by talking about Andrew Tate in all of this, and I know you're one of 4 brothers, are you?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got...
Do you know what? They all look the same. You can't tell.
Hang on, that's a bit unfair. You know that I'm much more handsome than the others.
You've got kids. I don't know if you've got boys.
I've got an 11-year-old boy, 15-year-old girl.
Right, OK. So talk to us about your thoughts on Andrew Tate. What's he doing to lad culture? What's he doing to our young men? And, you know, if you were one of your brothers growing up with him, you know, how could that have derailed you?
Yeah, I think that it's very different to the sort of lad culture of the 90s that I grew up as part of and was involved in, which had lots of problems and was toxic in many ways on reflection, but was all about knockabout fun, and it was very tongue-in-cheek and ironic, and that's not an excuse, but, you know, it was cheeky chappy stuff. I look at these guys now like Andrew Tate, and I think there's a lot more edge to this, and it's serious, and it's almost like a manifesto on manhood, which is really worrying. And all I would hope is that my son has more positive role models. He presents himself, Andrew Tate, as a winner. And by definition, he thinks that the people who aren't like him are losers. And the truth is, there are a lot of winners out there, a lot of blokes who are tough and funny and smart and successful, who are also in touch with their feelings and don't feel the need to be toxic and misogynistic. And I think role models like that are what I would like my son to be exposed to, not the likes of Andrew Tate.
Has your son talked to you about Andrew Tate?
He has, actually, yeah, and so has my daughter, because a lot of the boys at her school, she's in her final year at school, are very impressed by this guy. And I said, why? She went, well, he's got a fast car, they think he's really successful. And I said, but do they think there's a connection between him being really horrible about people and being successful? And she went, I think they do. And one of the things I'm trying to do in this book is say, do you know what? You don't have to trade in your Jack the Lad card. You don't have to be someone who is like a loser or soft to also be in touch with. You can be vulnerable, but you can still succeed in every different way in life. It's not like a black and white choice between being a horrible Andrew Tate figure or a weird hippie.
Well, I'm really glad, Sam, that you've sorted your head out.
Yeah.
The story, his journey, all there in Sam's book.
We didn't think we could love you more, but we do.
Well,
cheeky chappy that stayed cheeky is a great story. Well done. What a fantastic role model you are. You are
Thanks,
the
guys.
antidote.
Lovely to see you.
Tate. Fabulous. See you again. Maybe you come and do papers. I'm going to put you on pressure on there.
Who knows, yeah.
Who knows? You don't do that getting out of bed.
I know. This is the earliest I've been up in months.
We say goodbye to Sam. We'll say hello to you again after the break. And after that break...
Freddie Great, Claire Muldoon. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Papers, Freddie Gray, Claire Muldoon with those. Claire, we start with you. And if you want a job, go to the doctor's surgery.
You know, how ironic is that? Job coaches, this is the front page of the Daily Telegraph today. Job coaches at GP surgeries to push over 50s back towards work. The statistics and the evidence is there to suggest that Britain, post-pandemic, is the only major developed country to have suffered a sustained rise in economic inactivity since the start of the pandemic. And experts have warned the trend, driven by a surge in early retirement and long-term sickness, is undermining efforts to rebuild the economy. So what's the solution? Go to somewhere that someone is seeking healthcare for, because clearly they're ill, to ask them, you know, do you want to get back to work? Why don't you? But interestingly, this has been trialled up in Yorkshire, I think it was, and out of the 5,000 that was captured, South Yorkshire, yes, indeed, 50% success rate amongst 5,000 people, 5,000 patients we need to add in here, have gone back to work. But also, that will only work if you can actually go in to see your GP. And of course, repeatedly, our front pages here have been, you can't get to see a GP, the health service is crippled. So how can we identify and how can we clutch these over 50s that are economically inactive, and how can we get them back into work?
They're not suggesting that GPs are the job coaches. They're just saying that they could be stationed at the surgeries. It sounds like the surgeries are completely empty these days anyway, because everything's done on the internet.
I thought maybe they should get the over 50s and make them the job coaches in the surgery. And it'd be a virtuous circle.
There's definitely lots of innovative ideas coming up on how to get the over 50s back into
work.
Well,
how are we in such a situation, Freddie? We're such a dire situation, so desperate to get people back into the workplace that we go and hang out like some sort of, I don't know...
Grim Reaper.
Picking up people at the doctor's surgery.
Yes, it is odd. I mean, there's a labour problem. We have a productivity problem. And a labour shortage in key areas. There's not labour shortage in other key areas, but it's important to get... I mean, the government thinks that if we can get more over 50s back into the economy, things will start getting more productive. I think there's maybe a little bit overspun that. And also, you know, there's a lot of people who probably need to retire.
But those over 50, presumably just through the length of time and experience that they've been working, probably pay more, therefore they pay more in tax. And I know that there have been tax incentives as well for the over 50s to get back into the workplace, but other people saying it's a tax disincentive for people that is stopping people coming back to work. And it's, again, going back to the high tax issue.
Yes, or cutting income tax down for people over a certain age. That's a good idea. Also, over 50s tend to be better employees, I can say, as a bad under 50 employee.
So I would say they could take a scalpel to the income tax rules for those over 50, but I wouldn't be allowed to, or it would be frowned upon.
Really?
This is in the Mail, page 9.
Says who?
Anthony Horowitz, and I mention this story because it's in this brilliant magazine called The Spectator.
Who's the deputy editor there?
There's
brand awareness.
Somebody knows about it. Anthony Horowitz, who's a brilliant writer, writes every child's book your child is probably interested in, and he has been checked by a sensitivity reader, which is a real trend in publishing now, that authors have to run their books through sensitivity readers. And a sensitivity reader picked up on the fact that he had a Native American character who attacked someone with a scalpel. And the sensitivity reader thought this was to do with scalping the Native American character, and that was offensive, and so he had to strike the line out. But as Anthony Horowitz points out, actually the word scalpel comes from a Latin word, scalpere, which means to cut, not the Middle English word scalpe, which means top of the head. So the sensitivity reader was just wrong, first of all. And secondly, it's ridiculous.
I mean, this ties in with yesterday's story about the word woodcock being banned from Twitter and anything that had a reference to the words wood or cock.
And Jane Austen being...
the Jane Austen.
It's just so much sort of cultural...
Yes, I once found a publisher pulling his hair out because one of his sensitivity readers had appealed against the word tartly, thinking that it was misogynistic.
Well,
tartly meaning sharp, you know.
Oh, right, right, tartly, yeah.
That reminds me of the Italian reporting on the rugby when they used the word hooker for the number 2 in rugby. And the translation was prostitute.
Dear. Yeah.
So they can and often get it wrong.
Which leads us seamlessly into another...
I'm glad you got that one, Freddie. But we're not going on to that one yet.
Well, let's do it. Why not? It works nicely there. Yeah.
So Saturday marks the start of the Six Nations and indeed the rugby for Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland and Italy and France. But if you go to Cardiff Arms Principality Park this weekend, you will not be singing or allowed to sing Delilah, that famous Tom Jones song. And why can you not sing Delilah? Because the rugby chiefs of the Welsh Rugby Union have banned it. And they've banned it, as they say, that it's far too extreme lyrics in terms of misogyny and in terms of violence. And the reason it is because of the one line of the Tom Jones song, I don't blame Delilah. She's standing laughing at me whilst I've got a knife in my hand, and then she was silent, or words to those effect.
I'll tell you what the words were. I saw the light on the night that I passed by her window. Da, da, da. Anyway, it goes on. She was my woman. As she deceived me, I watched and went out of my mind. I could see that she was no good for me, but I was lost like a slave that no man could free. And then, basically, she stood there laughing at him. I felt the knife in my hand, and she laughed no more.
Right, OK. Read like that, sung like that at the beginning, you would think, gosh, but how long has this song been around?
Oh,
and I didn't even know the lyrics, and I'm sure quite a lot of people didn't know the lyrics. And I think by bringing people's attention to it, it's not necessarily a good thing, because moreover, it's the song, the melody that gets everybody going. And the Welsh have got great voices.
Advocating domestic violence or murder?
No, I wouldn't say so.
No, I mean, you're telling a story.
The Welsh Rugby Union, and it was just flagging something in my mind that there had been some news from there. 29th of January, so just last week, the CEO stood down and there were questions about culture and behaviours there. And I suppose if there's a sensitivity, at the top, but you need to be aware as well of what's
Isabel, yes, but I mean, if I was that head, and as Louise Rees-Zammit, that wonderful young Welsh rugby player, said, gosh, if they're banning that, do you not think they've got more things to ban instead of that? And I think they have. And a lot of the culture within rugby is very much a male-dominated sport. My son's a great rugby player and he loves it, but it's very much a culture of teams and it's a culture of loyalty. There's a lot of positivity.
And singing, let's be honest, in the Welsh.
Positivity in singing. And I'm going to Twickenham on Saturday and I'm very lucky to be going, yes, indeed.
England-Scotland.
England-Scotland, the start of the Six Nations for the Calcutta Cup, which sometimes is in Murrayfield and Twickenham. I will be rooting for Scotland. But, you just wonder what you can sing, where you can sing it and what will the reaction be.
I sometimes wonder what will happen with the Marseillaise. Because, it's a great song.
It's a great theme. It's a national
But the lyrics are, I mean, objectively, even someone like me who doesn't like to think of themselves as politically correct, quite shocking. It's about sang impure blood. We will not allow impure blood.
Wow.
It's heavy stuff. But, I mean, if any sensitivity reader took a check on it, they might find it pretty
Are the French
offensive.
particularly PC?
Yes, there's strong PC culture in France. Parent A and Parent B is how...
And one other thing, Delilah, the name for girls, has actually rocketed and it's very, very popular now. So I wonder if this will have an impact on that.
OK. Right, Freddie, where are we going with you? Water companies, yeah.
Yes, I'm afraid this is another gloomy story. I know we want to try and do a bit more cheer, but the water bills are going up, but the highest rate in 20 years. £448 is now going to be the average water bill. It's pretty dramatic rise. The water companies are saying it's below inflation, but their critics are pointing out that they lose millions of gallons every day to wastage, and they should make their processes more efficient and therefore bring down the price of water. I think it's generally quite well known that our water companies, since sort of semi-privatisation, have not been very well run. A lot of them are foreign-owned, and they're essentially trying to extract as much value as they can out of British water users.
Would we say they couldn't run a bath?
They could.
Very good.
And the things they've got to extract from their filtering plants, which
are now advertised. Have you noticed the increase in advertising for a certain water company down here?
No.
In terms of what you can and can't flush down the loo, etc., and they're saying that that's an issue.
I think it is an issue. I think are people just stupid, not thinking about what they put down the drain. Anyway, guys, you two are down the drain now. You're all over it. Thank you, Freddie and Claire. Appreciate it. Thanks for
a pleasure.
Thank you.
We were talking about singing during that little segment, and we're going to stay with that theme because a Cornish singer-songwriter without a manager or a record label has managed to top the iTunes charts.
Well, over the weekend, Bailey Tompkinson, she's 23 years of age, beat Taylor Swift. She beat Miley Cyrus to the #1 spot with her song Astronaut. Have a listen. Bailey, that is Astronaut, and you have just been propelled into the outer space, the outer limits. Bailey, congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you so much. How are you guys?
We're very good. All the better for seeing you and listening to your music. And we should explain, shouldn't we, to people at home, the only reason we were able to play that clip to you in all its beautiful entirety was because you are not yet signed and there aren't rights attached to it. So anybody, any sort of Simon Cowells out there looking for some new talent should focus, because goodness me, to beat Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift is no mean feat.
Absolutely crazy. I'm just very lucky that I've got people supporting me the way they do, because things like this don't happen without people buying the song.
Well, tell us about you. You're only 23. What were you doing before all of this, or has music always been your life? And why I'm asking you that, where have you been? Because it looks like you're going to be going places.
Thank you. So, yeah, I've been making music since I was a kid. And I've been professionally making music since I was about 16 or 17, releasing music and touring and stuff. But definitely over the last year, things have shifted. I'm just very lucky that I get to do this as my career.
And look, I don't know if you're in St Ives now or from St Ives, but we actually spoke to somebody a little while ago who had been very successful in one of the pop shows, also from St Ives, and we get the impression there's a really, vibrant music scene down in the town. Is that the case?
A lot of artists, yes.
So tell us a little bit about what it's like gigging and things in St Ives.
Yeah, so I grew up in St Ives, and I still live in St Ives. I love it here. It's my favourite place in the world. It was great. I kind of grew up going to these open mic nights, and I used to go to sessions where I'd be sat in a room full of older musicians. I was the youngest. I was about 14, and they were all over the age of 60, and I kind of learned a lot from them guys, playing the Eagles and Carole King and James Taylor and a lot of my favourite artists. And it's just got a very vibrant music scene. It's a very art-based town, so there's a lot of creativity going on.
Are you prepared for the inevitable, which means that you'll be spending less time in St Ives?
I think I love travelling. I filmed the music video over in New York, so I do love being away and seeing the world and playing my music around the world. But I'll always be able to come back, so it'll be waiting for me.
You were listing some of your favourites there. You didn't mention Taylor Swift or Miley Cyrus. Do you think they'll be miffed to see it at the top of the iTunes chart?
I hope not. It'd be cool if they saw it and they saw my name there. I was a massive Hannah Montana fan. So it's just absolutely mad that my name is next to theirs.
Very good, very
fantastic.
good. Well, every success,
and
thanks very much indeed for talking to us today before you become too famous to talk to us, because obviously that's what we hope for you, that's what we wish for you. Thank you very much indeed, lovely.
Bailey Tompkinson,
thank you.
All right, take care.
Okay.
Oh, I'd love to go to St Ives. Love
Yeah.
St Ives. There's lots of seals and things around there. Beautiful cliff walks, beautiful pubs, beautiful seafood. Oh,
It's just such a long way away.
I know.
It is, but,
I know.
but it's not a long way away if you live in Plymouth, say, for instance.
Or if you
whatever
fly
that
to
is.
Newquay, there's always that.
Yeah, go to Newquay, yeah, you do that.
Anyway, we digress. I've got to take a break.
I love digressing.
I know, but then we miss the breaks. Right, Rishi Sunak has had 100 days in office. We'll be talking about that and quick look at the forecast as well.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A lot of cloud across the UK today with rain in places, but it's also going to be mild. Our weather at the moment coming from the west to southwest. That's always a mild direction at this time of year. And with high pressure close to the south, things are staying largely dry, but weather fronts will topple northern parts of the UK. So Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England seeing the thickest cloud and some outbreaks of rain, but the rain primarily focused across northwest Scotland, where it's going to be heavy and persistent through much of the day. Light outbreaks of rain for the Northern Isles and some dribbles across western hills and coasts of England and Wales. Even across southwest England, there'll be some spots of rain. But a lot of cloud as well. The best of any brighter spells will be in the southeast. Widely, however, across the UK, it's 10 to 13 Celsius, with the exception of Shetland, where it stays a bit colder. So a very mild day to come for the vast majority, and a mild night to come on Thursday night. We keep a lot of the cloud, we keep the spells of rain going across northern Scotland. The rain turns more showery for a time on Thursday night in the north. It eases off across northern Scotland, some light outbreaks of rain push into southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, parts of Wales. But for many, by the start of Friday, it's generally cloudy, it's mild, but it's also fairly dry. The best of any brightness will be across northern Scotland on Friday morning. But again, a lot of cloud cover across the UK on Friday. Grey skies, especially in western areas, and once more there'll be some spots of rain over Dartmoor, Exmoor, Brecon Beacon, Snowdonia and so on. But the more persistent rain really crossing northern Scotland through the day on Friday. And it's going to be mild once again across the board. 10 to 13 Celsius, just once more a bit chillier across Shetland. Some changes take place on Saturday. Saturday starts off very mild, frost-free, a lot of cloud and some outbreaks of rain. Then a switch to colder but also brighter weather on Sunday, an early frost but a sunny afternoon.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind, and we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind, and we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Rishi Sunak marks 100 days in office defined by scandals and strikes.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It is 9 o'clock on this Thursday morning. It's the 2nd of February, and you're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Rishi Sunak reaches 100 days in office today, with his premiership being plagued by strike action and ministerial scandals. New polling puts the Prime Minister behind Labour, with the majority of people saying he's doing a bad job.
Interest rates are predicted to rise to 4% at lunchtime today, which could be the highest level since the 2008 financial crash. If that does happen, the move would be the Bank of England's 10th consecutive rate rise.
And coupling up with her pet pup, former Love Island star and I'm a Celebrity star, Olivia Attwood tells us why she's choosing to spend Valentine's Day with her dog Lola rather than with her fiancé Bradley Dack.
Today, Rishi Sunak marks 100 days in office, with his premiership so far defined by ministerial scandals and strike action.
Well, in the wake of walkouts by teachers and rail workers yesterday, the PM now faces another crisis, with his Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, facing calls to resign over mounting bullying allegations.
Well, new figures from the polling organisation YouGov suggest that 56% of people think Rishi Sunak is not doing a good job. In fact, they say he's doing a bad job as Prime Minister, as he trails 21 points behind the Labour leader Keir Starmer.
Well, very interesting to see. He's doing a better job, according to that poll, than people thought Boris or Liz Truss were doing. Let's get the analysis now of our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. He's been taking a look at Sunak's time as Prime Minister so far.
It was the job he fought for, then assumed he would never get. But on October 25th last year, Rishi Sunak walked into Downing Street as our new Prime Minister.
I've just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government in his name.
His first 100 days have been marked by the 3 S's: strikes, sleaze and stability. The Prime Minister's undoubted first success had been to stabilise the panicky financial markets after the calamitous tenure of Liz Truss. Confidence has been restored, but the economy remains bruised. Inflation continues to punch into double digits. Interest rates are still rising, and Britain is faced with a recession this year, unlike any other G7 economy. Real-term wage cuts are also provoking mass industrial action, not seen for decades. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, railway workers, bus drivers, frankly the list goes on and on, have joined picket lines with no end in sight. Rishi Sunak has also failed to get away from the mire of Tory sleaze, losing 2 cabinet ministers so far. Gavin Williamson resigned within weeks amid bullying claims, and Nadeem Zahawi was sacked over his tax affairs. But the Home Secretary, who was found to have broken the ministerial code, remains in place, as does Dominic Raab, who's facing his own claims of workplace bullying. So maybe it's not a surprise the opinion polls are looking grim for the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party. Some are now predicting a 1997 wipeout. The government insists, however, there is a narrow path to victory at the next election. And with a spring budget and local election campaign ahead, it is the next 100 days that will determine just how narrow that path is. Darren McCaffrey, GB News.
Correspondent Tom Harwood joins us now in the studio. So we've looked back at his 100 days. What about his next year and a half or whatever time he has guaranteed in office?
He'll be hoping it's a year and a half because, of course, there are some tricky hurdles along the way. We've seen how ruthless the Conservative Party can be in terms of challenging leaders. And there are those people who think that, hang on, this is a guy who we got in to try and stabilise everything. Well, to some extent, things have stabilised. But stabilised 20 points behind the Labour Party. That's perhaps not where the Conservative Party wants to be.
Tom, let's remember where they were under Liz Truss, 33 points behind Labour. He's made up 13 points. And we just saw from that YouGov poll, yes, 56% think he's doing a bad job, but significant proportion higher than Boris or Liz Truss. This idea that Liz Truss will come back in, which some of the papers are saying the Tory party backbenchers want, and indeed certainly Boris clearly wants, is that going to be an electoral asset or not?
I don't think anyone's suggesting seriously that Liz Truss would return to the role, but there are those around Liz Truss who want to push perhaps not her as a person, but her policy platform, which to some extent never got that big airing that perhaps people felt like it never got the time to bed in, settle down or push forward. And really, I think there is a big challenge for Rishi Sunak when it comes to these May elections, because we can look at polls and polls will say many different things. But this will be the first opportunity that we actually get to see whether what goes on in the polls is reflected right across the country in this big set of local elections in May. And we've seen before when Prime Ministers face challenges, whether it was Theresa May or indeed Boris Johnson, that often came very soon after a big set of local election results where people felt like, and particularly local MPs, might have lost their local councillors, their constituency chairman might be aggrieved. That's when things might start to move. So that's a big hurdle for Rishi Sunak to overcome. I have to say, the big thing on his side in the Conservative Party right now, however, is it would look ridiculous to remove a third Prime Minister in one term. I don't think there is any consensus about who might move on, and ultimately, Rishi Sunak is trying to unite the Conservative Party. The criticism he's getting from some quarters, though, by doing this sort of middle-of-the-road, uniting approach, by not really wanting to have many of these big battles, many people are asking, well, what's the point of the Conservative Party in government? And that's certainly something that I think we're going to hear more of from this group around Liz Truss called the Growth Group.
Yeah, so that question, what is the point of the Conservative Party, could also read, what is the point, or what was the point of Rishi Sunak? So would he have a legacy in mind?
I think he certainly wants to have a legacy. I mean, we've heard him talk about some of his passion projects, whether it's maths or whether it's increasing productivity. But I think he wants to try and stabilise the country's finances. He's prioritised balancing the books ahead of tax cuts. He's prioritised reducing inflation too. But obviously, this is sort of firefighting. In terms of creating a big policy prospectus, perhaps a legacy, I don't think we're yet at that stage. And we were expecting, talking to people in Number 10 in the run-up to Christmas, they were sort of explaining to me that they wanted to do firefighting up until the new year. And then the new year comes, you have this big set-piece speech, you lay out the vision for Britain and you sort of move forward with this positive agenda. Well, we saw a bit of that speech from Rishi Sunak, but I don't think we've yet seen that fleshed-out policy agenda that many people are asking for.
He hasn't got much wiggle room, has he? I mean, as you say, next month the budget shortly after that, the local elections, and all the while, these sleaze allegations swirling, which the Labour are loving at the dispatch box. What do you think he should do about the Dominic Raab question?
Well, he's been almost bolstered, I think, by the report into Nadeem Zahawi returning so quickly. He's been able to say, look, I follow process. I'm the kind of guy that does things by the book. I'm not going to prejudge any of these inquiries. And so when it comes to the Adam Tolley KC inquiry into the behaviour of Dominic Raab, Rishi Sunak will be able to say, up until the point it concludes, I'm doing things by the book, I'm following that, and it would be very, very surprising if he did not follow the recommendations of that report.
OK, Tom Harwood, as always, thank you.
Well, later today, the Bank of England is predicted to deliver its 10th interest rate rise in a row, bringing it to an expected 4%.
If that happens, the move will be a blow to the already under-pressure housing market. Let's get the latest from our London reporter, Lisa Hartle, on this. Lisa, what are estate agents saying about it all?
Hello. Yes, well, financial markets are predicting that the Bank of England base rate will be increased by 0.5%. That's up to 4%. So that's the highest level since the 2008 financial crisis. This, of course, will have an impact on the housing market because people are already struggling to pay their mortgages. I'm here at an estate agent in North London, joined by the director, Chanel Ali. That's the central bank there. Hiya. Hello. So if the interest rates do go up today, what impact is that going to have on the housing market?
As we can see, the housing market is already suffering for landlords, buy-to-let investors and vendors. With the increase of energy rates, we're seeing a lot of struggles with tenants and vendors not being able to pay their household bills. I feel like that it will be a massive depreciation in the housing market, and probably one of the worst that, if they do increase, that we have seen.
And you've had this business for over 15 years. Have you seen anything like this situation before?
So 2008 is when I opened up the estate agency, and what I had to do was we had to try and sustain our landlords to keep their properties, and the only way we did that was through the rental market. So we did grow massively with the rental market. However, this time is completely different because you're seeing the rental market suffering and the sales market suffering. So I don't believe that in the last 15 years that this country has ever seen what is about to happen. If the interest rates do increase to rise, I think it's going to be a big mistake for the country.
And again, if the interest rates do go up, what predictions can you make for the coming months for the rest of the year with the housing market?
The people that will benefit in markets like this are obviously people, cash buyers, people with inheritance and stuff like that. However, anyone that's going on the property ladder for the first time or a small landlord will completely suffer. The property prices are sustained at the moment. However, they will decrease, I see, in the year to come.
OK, Chanel, thank you so much.
That's okay.
So we're expecting to hear from the Bank of England on their decision with the interest rates around midday today.
Lisa Hartle, thank you very much. Welcome to the channel. Good to see you.
Thank you. 11 minutes past 9 o'clock. The headlines are these.
Shell says its profits have increased by more than 53%, with earnings of more than £68 billion in 2022. The energy giant has benefited from soaring oil prices.
British gas owner Centrica say they have stopped applying for court warrants so that they can force fit prepayment meters on people who haven't paid their bills. The decision comes after a Times newspaper sting in which an undercover journalist accompanied debt collectors who entered the homes of vulnerable people.
More than £400 million has been donated to UK charities to help people in the Ukraine. The United Nations says the Disasters Emergency Committee is the biggest charity to support Ukrainians inside the country. I always feel a real sense of pride. I mean, we can run down Britain, you know, as we often just see all these terrible stories day after day about the state of the country, and yet here we are in a cost of living crisis, and people are donating more than any other country to the crisis in Ukraine, and I think we should be really proud of that.
That's nearly £500 million.
Incredible.
We're going to take a break there, asking after that if people love their pets more than their partners. Well, she said it, Ruth, not me. With Love Island
it could be a tie. A tie? Oh, gosh, I'm in
Love
trouble.
Island star Olivia Atwood. We'll be talking about that right after this break.
Hello, a very good morning to you. A lot of cloud across the UK today with rain in places, but but it's also going to be mild. Our weather at the moment coming from the west to southwest. That's always a mild direction at this time of year. And with high pressure close to the south, things are staying largely dry, but weather fronts will topple northern parts of the UK. So Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England seeing the thickest cloud and some outbreaks of rain, but the rain primarily focused across northwest Scotland, where it's going to be heavy and persistent through much of the day. Light outbreaks of rain for the Northern Isles and some dribbles across western hills and coasts of England and Wales. Even across southwest England, there'll be some spots of rain. But a lot of cloud as well. The best of any brighter spells will be in the southeast. Widely, however, across the UK, it's 10 to 13 Celsius, with the exception of Shetland, where it stays a bit colder. So a very mild day to come for the vast majority, and a mild night to come on Thursday night. We keep a lot of the cloud, we keep the spells of rain going across northern Scotland. The rain turns more showery for a time on Thursday night in the north. It eases off across northern Scotland. Some light outbreaks of rain push into southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and parts of Wales. But for many, by the start of Friday, it's generally cloudy, it's mild, but it's also fairly dry. The best of any brightness will be across northern Scotland on Friday morning. But again, a lot of cloud cover across the UK on Friday. Grey skies, especially in western areas, and once more there'll be some spots of rain over Dartmoor, Exmoor, Brecon Beacon, Snowdonia and so on. But the more persistent rain really crossing northern Scotland through the day on Friday, and it's going to be mild once again across the board. 10 to 13 Celsius, just once more a bit chillier across Shetland. Some changes take place on Saturday. Saturday starts off very mild, frost-free, a lot of cloud and some outbreaks of rain. Then a switch to colder but also brighter weather on Sunday, an early frost but a sunny afternoon.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. Do you have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Taking the time to do that. We've been talking about the ban of the Tom Jones song Delilah for Welsh rugby fans. Of course, Six Nations kicking off at the weekend. What are people saying about that?
No way is... why do people
No, I think
English?
that's fine. No way is a Welshman with
All
a
right.
pint inside him not going to sing Delilah at a rugby match. I'm inclined to
Why
agree.
would that be?
Because, you know,
Why?
they love... Why?
Trish says, if I know the fans, they'll be singing it at the top of their voices, louder than ever.
Rosemary says, what a load of utter tosh. Great song. People these days are pathetic.
Pathetic, absolutely right, yeah. Please, we're not meant to take everything literally. That's the thing. They're just people who wake up in the morning and go, what can I cancel today? Who can I annoy?
Outraged by...
Who's annoying me?
I know.
I could have had you cancelled yesterday. And I pointed out, yes, for something, you and I had a conversation.
Did we?
We did have a conversation.
Well,
I can't say what it was about.
Oh, what have I done?
You used something, a word. Yes, that was...
Right, I thought I'd done something wrong. Yes,
no,
okay.
but people, some people, I'm not going to say the word, obviously I'm not going to say the word, and there's nothing wrong with the term that you used, but there are those who would seek to make an issue out of it. And the
world we live in.
And the thing is, even the English language means a different thing in America and it does in Australia or it does in Britain, whatever. So there's always... I think it's about time we started telling more people to get lost, really. Define, you know, he just say, who cares? We don't care. We're just going to keep on doing it.
I'm doing me. You do you. I'll do me. That's what my husband says all the time. You do you, I'll do me.
Yeah,
irritating.
do you, I do me.
Views on over 50s working. There's all these bids to try and make them more productive.
I dread hitting 50. I dread when it happens to me.
Loads of people emailing in, hang on, how about targeting the lazy young? And you can assume that's pretty much the vibe from a lot of these views. Lawrence says, I used to be a soldier and a police officer. I'm now a plasterer at 63. I don't need a doctor to tell me to go back to work. The young are lazy.
Yeah, but it would be nice, Lawrence. I mean, I respect you at 63 to, have the physicality to be able to do the plastering. Fair play to you, has to be said. Heather says maybe it's because the over 50s are knackered already. Maybe they're helping look after their grandkids. Maybe they're looking after their elderly parents. This is it. This is the big squeeze, isn't it, in all directions, whom the state seems to have washed its hands off. With regard to care, I looked after my elderly mother for 20 years, unpaid, which has left me feeling unable to re-enter the world of work in my late 50s. Now, this is a very interesting thing that Heather does. What used to be a duty within a family, and there's so many reasons why this doesn't happen, of course, because geographically, often over the UK, families are split up, some of them in the north, some of them in the south, east, west, whatever. And then the family circle doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and then...
so it takes a village to look after young and old, and quite often people are isolated from families these days. That's actually something I feel really strongly about, staying close to my core family. We talked about AI a little bit earlier on in the programme.
Artificial
is it a good
intelligence.
thing or a bad thing when it comes to schooling? Well, certainly a leading independent school has said they're looking to move away from homework essays because of the power of online artificial intelligence.
You see, what's going to happen is we're going to create robots which will then become so smart, they will be much smarter than us, and they will say, why are we taking orders from these humans? And they will get rid of us.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first. So the AI bot that is taking over schools, bit of a headache for teachers. We spoke a little bit earlier on. Are we playing a clip from a... What's happening? Someone give me an AI. Are we going to a VT or are we reading the...
No. There was a story...
Oh, I do apologise.
No, there's a story which isn't very good, and it's...
we asked an AI to write a story about
where
us.
Is the...
It's all right, it's on the auto cue. We've thrown that long away.
A generated story. Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. This is written by a computer, right? Made up. It's thought of the plot. It's done everything else. But basically, you and I end up on a desert island, right?
What a thought.
You then
you'd be a nightmare.
You then can't resist your primeval attraction to me because you see me in a loincloth.
No, I see you being so manly and fending for yourself.
Yes, and I have to say, no, Isabel. There are other people in our lives.
That is not what it says.
It does. This is what the computer said.
It does not.
Isabel then demanded that Eamonn...
No, it does not.
Well, anyway.
Ended a different way.
But if that was written for you on your behalf, you'd want your money back, wouldn't you?
But the point... OK, listen...
So now the reason we're talking nonsense is that we couldn't get a link to Olivia Attwood, but we now can get a link to Olivia Attwood. So how long will we have with Olivia before we start talking to her? 2 minutes, Olivia. Your time starts now. Right. So you're on today because it says that a lot of people on Valentine's Day would prefer to spend time with their pet or their doggy in particular than their partner. Tell
Surely
us more.
Not you.
I mean, I hope my fiance's not watching, but obviously I do love my dogs very dearly. But yeah, that's what the new research suggests. I mean, they don't answer back, do they? So that's probably always a bonus.
I mean, what is it about us Brits? We're so soppy about our pets that we prefer them to our partners. I mean, I know Eamonn
Well, you only have to meet some of our partners. Then realise, if my wife treated me the way my dog does, life would be a whole different thing, Olivia. So how good is Lola to you?
I mean, she's amazing. She's obviously a rescue. So we had her since a pup. She was abandoned on the streets of Romania. And I think that journey of, rescue dog to kind of domesticated dog, the bond is really special. She was so nervous when we first got her. Like, she wouldn't let my partner anywhere near her. And now, she's a completely different dog.
Oh, that's such a lovely story. Yeah. But she won't send you flowers on Valentine's Day. She won't buy you diamonds. You've got a lovely engagement ring on your finger. I think your fiancé is entitled to feel a bit miffed, no? That's not your fiancé. Yeah.
The dog's on the... She wishes. Yeah, look at those eyes. Look, that's my little dog. That's my rescue dog, Olivia. And, look, her tongue's out constantly. If I came home and Ruth rolled around on her back like that with her tongue hanging out, life would be perfect. It'd be perfect. So Valentine's Day, yeah. So tell me, you've actually brought out cards, haven't you?
Yeah, so the cards and the campaign with Butcher's Dog Food is, bringing a bit of awareness to dog nutrition, which I think sometimes is overlooked. So the Healthy Hearts campaign is all about feeding a dog a balanced diet and focusing on heart health. And then the cards we're doing is, just a bit of fun, and the proceeds go to Nourish Every Dog, the initiative from Butchers to give meals to dogs in need up and down the country. So
okay, that's really, really heartwarming. It's lovely. Thank you.
Good. Olivia, our 2 minutes is up. We've got to go. Thank you for telling us about Lola, about Bradley, your fiancé.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get anything for Valentine's after that. That's all I'm saying.
And those little cards. Look after yourself. Thanks, Olivia. Bye-bye. Thank you very much indeed.
That's it from us. Stephen Dixon and Angela Rippon will be back from 6 tomorrow. And up next, it's Tom Harwood. Have a wonderful weekend. See you next week.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website